Many parts make up a premiership team. Star veterans, rookies with perfect timing, and those who fought hard to win a spot. Some had to cross borders, others dazzled at a young age, and some grabbed a second chance. Now everyone is chasing the demons, and it begins at the NAB AFL Draft.
Pick number 1, Sam Walsh.
Jacob Wiedering.
A handshake.
Cameron Rayner with Andrew McGrath.
A smile for the camera.
Dustin Martin. Nikai Cockatoo.
Hugh McCluggage.
Joe Danaher.
Dreams become real. School kids become AFL footballers. Ready-made stars.
Right spot, right time, and the right moment for the number 2 draft pick. Now Franklin, a long way from goal.
Adelaide's very similar to Geelong.
The bigger the stage, the better he is.
Diamonds in the rough.
How good is this kid? A young gun. How's the finish? It is perfection.
Names cheered for generations. This might be the first time you hear these names, but boy, it won't be the last.
Pick 1, North Melbourne Football Club have selected Jason Horne-Francis.
The future is now. This is the 2021 NAB AFL Draft on Fox Footy.
Good evening and welcome to night 2 of the AFL 2021 Draft. The dreams of 20 young men came true last night and we're expecting more of the same tonight with rounds 2 onwards. Let's welcome the panellists. Kevin Shifter-Sheen, the AFL Talent Manager. You're armed with pages and notes. You must be very excited for tonight.
Very excited, Tommy. We hope to double that number tonight to around the 40 players to become instantly household names in the AFL world at least.
And Lee Montagna, the St Kilda champion. You're going to analyse all these picks tonight. What are you expecting?
Yeah, look, I'm expecting another great night. I mean, we thought that there were some nervous boys last night and some excitement. Well, in all reality, they knew they were going to get drafted. It was just a matter of which club. But tonight, there's probably 80-odd young men sitting at home, about 40 spots, as Shifter said, looking to live out their boyhood dream. So it's going to be some nervous moments, but, gee, some excitement when they do get drafted. So we wish them all luck. And for those that miss out, you know, never give up. There's always other avenues to get into the AFL system.
So round 2 is not far away, but Jason Horne-Francis was at the top of the draft last night. Do you see him making an impact straight away at North Melbourne?
Oh, absolutely, Tom. I mean, we've seen for a number of years now these young kids come into the AFL system ready to play and ready to impact straight away. He's going to be no exception. He's ready to go. He might not start in the centre square round 1 at the Kangaroos, but he will certainly be on a half-forward flank, be able to be part of that midfield group. And I think he can change the fortunes of the Kangaroos almost immediately, like what we've seen with Sam Walsh and Matt Rowell and other guys and the impact they can have straight away.
And you can't underestimate the grounding. He's had 2 years at senior level at South Adelaide, so he's ready to run.
All right, there's some real heartwarming shows of emotion last night. That was one of them. And we see the North Melbourne Footy Club there. They've got Jason Horne-Francis. But last night, I was at London Tavern where Ben Hobbs was stoked to be selected by the Bombers, and he was also wiping away tears. You see, he was selected with pick 13. He's just coming up soon. And then the other one was Darcy Wilmot as well. This was Hobbs crying, Joey, and there were tears of joy. It was really great scenes.
Absolutely. Tears of joy, tears of relief as well, because it's been a long build-up for these players. You've got to remember, there hasn't been a lot of football this year for many of them. It's a long build-up now with exams and media and the scrutiny around the draft. So to finally hear your name called out, and as I said earlier, live your boyhood dream, it's one of the great moments that you'll never forget in your life. And we had all different types of emotions, and you can see there, Ben Hobbs, great to see that rawness in him.
And Darcy Wilmot as well, Shifter, the Brisbane Lions. What a good pickup that is.
Yeah, and the youngest player in the draft. Hey, born 4 hours later, he'd be the first choice next year. But he's surrounded by his mates. They did get around him, didn't they? We're a bit worried he might have broken a few ribs here, but he came up pretty well this morning, and he'll become a Brisbane Lion player.
Yeah, well, this is what we want to see more of tonight, Tommy. These sort of celebrations. This is what it's all about. This is what it was a bit more like in the old days too. You could celebrate and carry on a bit more like that.
What was it like for you in 2001, Joey?
Well, mine was I was at schoolies on the Gold Coast, so I must admit mine was similar to that sort of celebration. No cameras back then.
Certainly no video phones in 2001. All right, it's time to welcome in Fox Footy's draft expert over in WA, Mick Ablett, to the coverage for the first time tonight. A big night in Perth last night. But tell us, first and foremost, are we going to see Fremantle use pick 21, the first pick in the second round, on Matt Johnson, Mick?
Good evening, boys. Tommy, you've sort of backed me into a corner here, but I'm going to sit on the fence for the first a little bit of this day two of the draft, because there has been a lot of conjecture around the second round of the draft. I know a number of clubs have really tried hard to get back in because the talent's still on the board without success. So it just goes to show how highly the clubs that are in the mix for that second round, and particularly through 20 through to 30, how much they value these selections and the players still on the board. So anything could happen. I think if Fremantle do give it up, they're certainly going to get their money's worth, and maybe even a bit more because of, like I say, the value that's still sitting there on the board in the 2021 draft.
Just stay there for a second, Mick. Joey, Hawthorn, we know, like Matt Johnson. Could they swoop?
Well, absolutely they could. I mean, if you really look at the second round of the draft, there's 5 clubs have got 13 selections, 13 of the 18 selections. So clubs like North Melbourne, Geelong, Hawthorn and Richmond, who we believe might want to move up the board, and the West Coast Eagles really dominate this second round. So they are the teams that we're going to look for, and if they are going to try and improve their position, it might be to get that pick 21.
And Mick, last night, 2 picks in the top 10, the Fremantle Dockers, they'd be pretty happy with their haul.
Yeah, absolutely. I just spoke to Justin Longmuir just prior to coming on air, and a very, very happy Fremantle outfit. Not only did they get the key forward they were chasing, and they also topped up with that tough inside mid, maybe someone to learn off David Mundy for the next 12 months or so as he gets the tail end of his career. But a very, very happy Fremantle Docker outfit, and looking forward to day 2 where they can just add a little bit more talent to the mix of those 2 boys that they've already brought into the club.
And they worked hard to keep that pick 21, so I'm sure they'll be looking to use unless a deal was too good to refuse. Thanks, Mick. We'll check back in with you a little bit later on. So from Perth to Marvel Stadium, where Sarah Ollie is standing by. Sarah, it's just another day and there's some COVID chaos as well. Bring us up to speed.
Good evening, Tom. You're absolutely on the money. In fact, the foyer just to my right here, well, it's turned into a little mini COVID triage. We've all had to have rapid tests upon arrival, and that's because it has since been revealed that a club staffer who was here at Marvel Stadium last night, well, they've tested positive for COVID. So everyone upon arrival, as you can see, getting their names ticked off when they do these rapid tests. And the good news is, so far, no positive tests. Now, along with the rapid tests, there has been a tightening of restrictions. You can see no one's immune. Even our own Johnny Ralph getting it right up the schnook there. But masks must be worn throughout the entire evening, and the AFL have also asked that clubs don't commingle, so they do stay in the rooms where they are making selections. But that's all the bad news. I'm all about the good news this evening, boys, and I'm hoping to see a few more scenes like we saw in Darcy Wilmot's lounge room last night when they're all piling on top of each other, because that's what draft night's all about.
Thanks, Sarah. We'll check back in with you as the night goes on. Shifter, there's some good players left. Who are we expecting to be at the top of the whiteboards for the clubs that are in the 20s?
Well, these are the Fox footy rankings, and you can see that some highly rated boys are still on the board. Look for Jesse Motlop, son of Daniel, but not eligible father-son, so he's one of the complex one. He's Next Generation Academy, Fremantle, but if there's a bid inside 40, they can't match the bid. They'll be hoping that he gets outside 40 and they can pick him up with ease.
So these are the Fox Lab rankings, and as you can see, pick 13 and 14, well, they're still on the table. Many thought that Johnson would go last night, Joey. He's held over to tonight, and I bet you there's some clubs that are looking to get him.
Yeah, and a lot of midfielders in that group as well. So we saw last night, shifted, didn't we? A lot of key defenders went, and the clubs took players on specific needs. So it's left a lot of quality midfielders in the early part of this second round. So look for clubs like Richmond and Hawthorn that we know are looking for midfielders to swoop early.
All right, round 2's not far away. Stay with us on Fox. It's coming up right after this.
On behalf of the AFL, I would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people, the traditional owners of the land we meet on today, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. We acknowledge we play our great game on this land and respect the cultures of all First Peoples, their contribution to our nation and their contribution to the game of Australian rules football. Round 2 of the 2021 NAB AFL Draft starts now, and Fremantle Football Club, you're on the clock.
So these are the Dockers, Simon Garlick and Bob Murphy and Peter Bell over to the left, with Justin Longmuir there in Perth, Joey, and all the boys on the right are in Melbourne. Yeah,
the 2 different venues there. So you can see the COVID masks in Melbourne and the Fremantle over there. Bob Murphy not sitting next to the coach tonight. He was there last night front and centre for the top 10 picks, but he's now found a different spot in the corner, and begin waiting to see where they take Matthew Johnson, the local product, who highly talented shifter, isn't he? A lot of clubs put ahead of him in his top sort of 10 to 12 in that range on their lists, and somehow he sort of slipped through to this first pick in the second round.
Yeah, watch him coming through. It reminds me of a Mitch Duncan as a young fella, as a 17, 18-year-old coming through. He's just so composed, a great user of the football. And he played well grand final day. That's the early curtain raiser they had, the WA versus SA state game. A big occasion, wins the medal. They're all great signs. He's a boy of 192 centimetres. I'd see him playing out in the wing for a start, but as he grows physically stronger, he can get into the midfield, into the stoppage sort of area and have an impact. So I think he's the best credential player that's left on the board.
So there has been a bit of talk about a comparison to Scott Pendlebury. Shifter, is that fair? I mean, he's got that beautiful sidestep, obviously got the height, can play outside, and then Scott Pendlebury was able to obviously develop into one of the all-time greats. We're not saying that, but certainly got those attributes at his age.
Well, the key is waiting 3 years for that, to him grow physically in terms of putting on some weight to be able to mix it with the bigger bodies inside. But that outside run and ball use for his assets right this minute.
That's Ed McMullen on the phone there on the right in the Melbourne-based office, Peter Bell and Justin Longmuir. You'd think that Fremantle would have got some reasonable offers, but it'd have to be a pretty good offer to get pick 21. I'm just looking down the draft order here. Geelong have picks 24 and 25. But, Joey, if you remember back to the trade period, the Dockers worked so hard to keep pick 21 and also get Jordan Clark, or get the first pick of the second round and also get Jordan Clark in from Geelong. Yeah, it was a great get by David Walls and his team to get a hold of this first pick in the second round, because clubs have now had almost 24 hours to come up with some offers to try and move up into the draft. They've been able to consider everything and in a really strong position, and now it's up to them whether they want to take Matthew Johnson or trade the pick.
Pick 21. Fremantle have selected Matthew Johnson from Subiaco.
Well, it may have taken 24 hours, but I reckon their sum up last night would have been, gee, how can we get hold of this fella? We can't believe our luck. They would have thought we're only going to get 2 of the Western Australian best boys. They've ended up with 3 of them. This is a great win for Freo. They'll be absolutely wrapped, and you probably can't hide their emotion and the emotion of, I think, Matt Johnson too. He'd be delighted to be staying at home and playing on those vast wings of the Optus Stadium.
Yeah, and be wrapped for the young man. Obviously a little bit awkward, a little bit deflating for him last night, not getting picked up, but to stay in his hometown, to now be drafted with 2 other Western Australians, and he is one of the best kicks in the draft. Make no mistake, he's, as Shifter said, got that ability to play on the outside, and he might start his AFL career as a wingman. You can see here, always wanting to bring the ball back into the corridor, change his angles, got a lovely step, and at 192 centimetres, he's the prototype of the modern AFL midfielder.
Joey, do you think that clubs take into account where players are from in the first place? I mean, Fremantle have got a good culture going. They've got a good successful culture, they hope, in the future years. But they've lost Adam Cerra, they've lost Ed Langdon home in recent years. Do you think that plays into it at all?
Not really. I just think it's a bonus. I think it's a bonus that they've got a top 10 talented player still available. He's from Western Australia. Same with the other boys. I think it was a great crop of Western Australians this year, and to be able to get the 3 best junior Western Australians from this year and all go to the Fremantle Dockers, they must be wrapped with what they've done this period. Mick Ablett's in Perth. 3 locals for the Dockers. They must be very happy over there, Mick.
Absolutely, and isn't it amazing what 24 hours can do in football? There was tears last night in the family. Would have gone home a pretty flat young man, and then today gets the news that he's staying in Perth and now on an AFL list. So congratulations to the Fremantle Dockers and to Matt Johnson and his family. I'm sure they'd be absolutely stoked. When you watch him play, I love the fact he's at his best when he keeps it simple. Matt Johnson is an absolute elite athlete. He's a very good midfielder. And I actually think Bailey Dale, when I see him play, I think he's really got that ability to either come off a wing, to come off half-back. He can pinch hit through the midfield, but loves to set up play, loves to create. He just sits off the contest, very good either side of the body, as we see here on the vision. And as we saw, he is a bargain buy. He's an absolute steal for Fremantle. To get him at pick 21 is just a great result for them and also for West Australian football.
He's one of those players, Tom, that's able to find time and space. He's always had that ability. And this is something that really improved in his game this year, his ability to win contests, to be able to go and play as an inside midfielder that ideally he would like to develop into and become an inside mid as his body gets bigger and he grows into his size. But you can see his numbers there. The kicking efficiency is the one that stands out. As we said, one of the best kicks in the draft, certainly the best kick in Western Australia. And yeah, he's going to slot in beautifully, probably pretty early at Fremantle and get some good game time.
So North Melbourne's got a couple of minutes left. Shifter, we've also got a full body of work for these players in WA. They've had full seasons, unlike some of the kids in Victoria and New South Wales.
Yeah, it's the old production versus potential. So he's had production production for 2 years. They've been analysing probably close to 40 games of footy from Matt Johnson. The Vic boys, they average about 6 games the last 2 years. Nothing last year, about 12 this year. So you're looking at potential rather than the production over a long period of time. So it's a little bit of crystal balling there on the Victorian boys' ability to be stars at AFL level.
Which sort of player are North Melbourne looking for here, do you think, Joey?
Well, I think there's a couple of key areas. I think that maybe a tall defender is an area that they are a bit light on for, that they might look at. As we saw with the board, though, there might not be those available at the moment. So certainly some outside class as well, I think, for the Kangaroos. I mean, Sean Atlee's moved on. Aaron Hall has been terrific, but he's getting a bit older. And they've got Bailey Scott and Jaden Stevenson and some other players, but maybe some run and outside talent might be something they're looking for as well.
Pick 22, North Melbourne have selected Josh Gota.
He'll break the lines, take the game on, and it was 2 brilliant games he had at the end of the NAB League season in that role. Earlier in the year, he was playing as the wingman and then the inside mid. He's 190 centimetres. He has got elite vision and composure with the footy, this boy. The rep game, which we'll refer to a bit between Metro and Country, you saw that he was at his best then. 23 disposals right there in the middle of the ground, that he just got the ball in his hands, summed things up and slipped it out brilliantly to his teammates on the run. So he's got lots of scope, can play lots of positions, and at 190, he's the ideal type.
So he's a utility, and as a result, North Melbourne have picked him up, and this is the reaction when they read out his name. Brad Scott, there he goes. He's a North Melbourne player now. Glenn Luff, the list manager, they looked at all the available options and they've decided on Josh Gota, and Hawthorn's up next. Joey, that's a pretty good selection based on the rankings that we have from the Fox Lab. Yeah, his athletic profile is what really stood out. He's got the leg speed, he's got that ability to mark overhead and that real athletic trait. He's probably more of the athlete than the natural footballer, you could say. He's probably not as maybe as refined with his skills as some of the sort of top 20 picks in this draft, but you can see here his athletic traits that stand out. He's a beautiful size at 190 centimetres. He's probably more comfortable at the moment on a half-back flank or a wing, but as Shifter said, can probably develop into that midfielder because he loves to take the game on. He knows he's got those athletic attributes, Tom, so he wants to use them. And this is what you're going to see from this player. This is the perfect example. Use that athleticism, drive out of stoppage, take a run and bounce, and the Kangaroos have got themselves a beauty. I think David Noble's been in the sun. He looks pretty tan there. The North Melbourne coach. He's got a negative test back yesterday. He's able to be there last night, and he's there again tonight. So Josh Gota, we're going to chat to him now on the Fox Footy coverage. What an amazing time to be speaking to us, Josh, and us speaking to you. You must be so stoked with being a North Melbourne player now.
Yeah, I'm absolutely over the moon. Obviously, followed North Melbourne my whole life, and yeah, I'm absolutely stoked to be able to be at that pick and land myself at that club. So I'm absolutely rapt to get into it with that bunch of boys, and yeah, looking forward to it next week. Congratulations, Josh. Tell us about last night. Obviously, watching the draft, you might have been hopeful to have got selected. How did you sleep? How did you sort of go watching it last night and not hearing your name called out and having to wait another 24 hours? Yeah, it was a bit of mixed emotions last night. Obviously, I would have loved to go last night. It would have relieved a bit of the stress a bit, but I'm absolutely over the moon to land at North Melbourne tonight, and it was worth the wait. I'm absolutely rapt to get into it, and yeah, can't wait for next week. Josh, who was your favourite North Melbourne player growing up? Yeah, so I was a forward all my junior career, so Drew Petrie was someone that I always looked up to growing up as a youngster. And who are you with tonight, and how are you going to celebrate? Yeah, so with mum and dad and my brother at the moment, so mates couldn't come over, so because he's got graduation at the moment, so I'll be rocking up late to graduation, so looking forward to that. So you're going to go to the graduation? Yeah, I'll be rocking up a bit late. I was tossing up between going now and watching the draft at the table, but yeah, I made the decision to stay at home with the family and watch it. It's a pretty good graduation. Oh, mate, absolutely. Go and get the suit on, go and enjoy the night with all your school friends. Well done, mate. Congratulations. Good luck for your career. Thanks, boys. Cheers. That's Josh Gota, pick 22 to North Melbourne. How good's that? Graduation after that. He's going to rock into graduation like a king tonight, isn't he? He's going to have the strut going, but so he should. Sunbury College shifter for Josh Gota. And just up the road, hey, Ross Smith, of course, coached him there at the Calder Cannons, a star for North Melbourne back in the day, and had 15 or 20 years coaching young players coming through, and no doubt he's put some polish on him. What sort of player are we looking for the Hawthorn Footy Club here? Pick 23. They were clearly keen on Matt Johnson, couldn't get up the order enough. What are we looking at? Yeah, look, they've already taken one midfielder with Josh Ward. You think maybe another midfielder? With pick 23, Hawthorn have selected Sam Butler.
from the Greater Western Victorian Rebels.
Sam Butler.
The brother of Dan, of course, the Saint now that was a Tiger. He's a little bit bigger than the brother, but he's got a lot of the traits of the brother in a very elusive player, terrific acceleration. And we love the word, footy IQ or footy nous. Yeah. He can sniff the footy out of whether it's a stoppage or up around the goals. I liken him to a bit of Hughie McCluggage at the moment, just because of that ability to weave through the traffic and be pretty poised with it. McCluggage, of course, was from the Rebels. This boy is he'd be the fourth player from the Rebels taken already. That's a fantastic result from Greater Western Victoria to have him go through. And the third from St Pat's. What a school it has been for producing champions of the game. So Sam Butler is the next player and will stay home in Victoria to go to the Hawks.
Yeah, Phil Partington, Pardo will be really pleased that another GWV boy has been drafted. It's been a bit of a lean run in recent years, but they've got a good crop this year, and Sam Butler, he's going to be a little ripper as well. I think likening him to a little bit of Zach Butters. He's that type of player that can come up into the midfield, but also can pinch hit forward, burst out of stoppage, get forward to the ball and hit the scoreboard. All right, Sam Butler's ready to go. Sam, congratulations on being selected by Hawthorn. Talk us through your emotions. Can you put it into words?
Not really, to be honest. I'm absolutely over the moon. Hard to put into words, but just grateful for the opportunity, I suppose. Can't wait to get into it. Pretty generic, but yeah, just can't wait.
Did you know that Hawthorn were keen on you?
I did have a few with them. Yeah, I don't know. Hard to tell, really. Most clubs don't really give you much indication, but yeah, just once again, so grateful.
Congratulations, Sam. Have you got your brother Dan there with you tonight? And how's he been as someone you can lean on and I suppose get some advice? And what was his advice leading up to tonight?
Yeah, I've got all my family lounge room. His advice, I don't know. I do get a lot of advice off him. He's probably been my main role model. Here he is. So, yeah, he probably has been my main role model since Dad doesn't really have a clue about footy. But yeah, which isn't bad. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I'm just lost for words right now.
Hey, Sam, who's quicker, you or Dan across the turf?
Me, I reckon. Hopefully I can smash him one next year.
Can you put Dan on? Is he around or has he had a couple too many drinks?
Put him on. I reckon he might come in now after hearing that. He might have had a few, but I reckon he might be coming.
Get Dan Butler on from the St Kilda Footy Club.
Yeah, here he is.
Hey, Dan, I'm sure you can hear us. How proud of you of your brother to be selected for Hawthorn Footy Club, and what will you do if you play against him? What a treat that would be for your family.
Yeah, obviously really proud of him. He's worked really hard for it. So, yeah, really excited to see him hopefully next year and looking forward to smashing him as well.
He's pretty modest. What sort of player is he? How good can he be?
Yeah, I think he can be seriously pretty good. He's yeah, very hard worker, really good on the inside in the contest and real clean hands feeding it out. So, yeah, pretty similar to someone like Zach Butters or Cochin. So, yeah, really look forward to watching him develop over the next few years. Hey, Dan, he might have you covered in a couple of areas on the footy field, but I reckon that mow, you've got him covered. I don't reckon he can grow a mow as good as that, mate, so you've still got him there.
My goatee's all right, so we'll take that.
Hey, Sam, congratulations. Really pleased for you. Looking forward to see what you can do at Hawthorn for the next few years.
Thanks heaps, guys. Appreciate it.
And thanks to Dan Butler as well for jumping on for a chat. Always good to see the family affair, Joey. Yeah, we're just having a look at the GWV Rebels draftees so far. Shifter and, gee, they had a really strong list, don't they, this year? They had some talent there, Josh Gibcus and Hobbs, and now Butler to join Lohmann. We might have made a comment yesterday. They had 9 contenders. How good's that for a regional club to have that many guys and the best 100-odd players around Australia? Yeah, it's awesome. Now, Geelong's up next, Shifter. Give us some names. What are we looking at for the Cats? Well, you'll wonder, right? Hold that thought. They've made their mind up.
With pick 24, the Geelong Cats have selected Toby Conway from the Geelong Falcons.
That's the ruckman the Cats supporters have been calling out for. I think he's the best ruckman other than Sam Darcy, that we'll say is a key position and or ruckman. But this boy at 205 centimetres is the best right round Australia, and he's a local boy, Geelong Falcons boy. He'll just have to come up the road to Skills Stadium, just around the corner. He's been getting some tuition from big Brad Ottens too, just in his own time to improve his game. He's got a great ruck craft. Even now for an 18-year-old, you'll need to develop the body further. In fact, he's watched Oscar McInerney as one that he has admired, particularly for the way he gets down the back to help out. You know, I love that work ethic of him. He also get down at centre bounce too and follow up. like Brad Ottens could. So I think it'll just take some time, but I think the Cats have invested in a ripper there.
Yeah, and generally most ruckmen do take time to develop at AFL level. Certainly he was the best ruckman left in the draft pool, wasn't he, after a couple of the big ones got drafted in the mid-season. Geelong, we knew, were probably in the market for a ruckman. They've got Segler and Reece Stanley, who are both 30, so they needed that young developing ruck, and they've got young Conway. And again, as you said, Shifter, another Geelong Falcon, and we've seen they've got a history. They love staying local. They had 13 on their list last year, the Geelong Falcons. A couple got delisted, but there's another one for them.
Mick Ablett is in Perth. What do you make of what you're seeing so far over there?
Yeah, fantastic selection by the Cats. I really like this kid. He is your modern-day ruckman. He certainly gets into positions to win the ball around the ground. Not afraid to get a handball receive either. So I'm not surprised that the Cats have gone down that path.
With pick 25, the Geelong Cats have selected Mitchell Nevitt from the Geelong Falcons.
Well, we'll stay at home again.
Yeah.
Absolutely a wrap this boy will be. He's from Grovedale, just up the road, and he's the best and fairest winner at the Falcons this year. Tall midfielder, 193-centimetre boy with speed and endurance.
As we said, another beautiful, impressive athlete. We know Geelong love to draft those athletes. You know, they've had Blitzarves and Henry and even Max Holmes as an athlete, so they love that type of play. But the prototype, 193-centimetre midfielder, that's where the game is now. He's good in stoppage and can go forward and catch it. And as we said, we touched on all the Geelong Falcons already at the Cats, and you can add a couple more to that list. So they love to keep them at home. Well, I think for as long as we can remember, they've always been able to either draft locals or get locals to come back to the footy club. Just a wonderful environment to be at, the Geelong Football Club, living down there now. So, yeah, they've kept them homegrown once again.
So Hawthorn's up next. And Geelong have picked a ruckman and a tall midfielder, so clearly they're focusing on some height as well, Shifter.
Yeah, and the boys producing the players now at the Falcons, with Mick Turner moving on and retiring after a brilliant career in helping develop players. Paul Corrigan's now the coach, a former draftee to the Cats, played 50-odd games down there. And Tom Lonigan's the talent operations manager, one of the most courageous Cats of all time. He'd been at the Cannons. He's moved down there to help the boys of Geelong. So they have done a great job to prepare these two boys.
Mick Turner, an iconic name in football circles. He's produced so many AFL players over the journey, and I hope he's enjoying his retirement or whatever he's up to. Now, the Hawks are up next, and are we thinking they're going to go for another midfielder? What are we thinking, Joey?
Well, we do know they need midfielders. They need to continue to stock up. They obviously took Ward last night early, Sam Butler a couple of picks ago, but they still need to try and replenish O'Meara and Shields and Mitchell and these types of guys. They've got Warple and a couple of others coming through.
Josh Ward.
Yeah. So that I think maybe a midfielder. You wonder what they think with their forward line. We know they've got Kaczynski and Mitchell Lewis, who are both late picks, and a couple of really good picks by the Hawks, but with Jack Gunston getting on a little bit, even Luke Bruce as well. Maybe they look to improve their forward line, but maybe they just take the best available. So it'd be interesting to see which way they go. Well,
Shifter, who is the best available? If you're Hawthorn right now, who are you looking at?
Well, will they go for the obvious one that was under their noses, a boy called Tyler Sonsi that played midfield too and had a game up at Box Hill. His first VFL game, had 22 and kicked a goal. But he's a star from the Eastern Rangers, coached there by Travis Cloke. So he's one that just injured at the wrong time this year. So it was a short season, it was, but I remember his first game, he was best on the ground in the opening round of the NAB League at the start of the year and had that great game at Box Hill, but then missed some of those, or that national challenge match. So not all went to plan for him this year, but he's a very talented player.
And it's a rarity to have another pick inside 30 for Hawthorn. I think last we saw they've only had 8 top 30 picks in the last 10 years. So it's been rare, but they've been a club that's been so good at being able to find some diamonds in the rough. You think of James Warple was at pick 45, Blake Hardwick was at pick 44. So whichever way they go, you know they're going to get a beauty. Mark McKenzie there, the list manager, a former teammate of mine at the Northern Knights all those years ago. So he's doing a great job down there.
Could he play?
He was a very good player in his own right, absolutely. So he's still working on the phones at the moment.
So a clear change of direction for Hawthorn. They're focusing heavily on the draft. We knew that in the trade period. They didn't quite get done what they wanted to do, but they're still going to get some elite young talent in with these multiple top 30 picks. Yeah, absolutely. And they've got a... They've admitted they're down that path. They would have liked to get another pick. You know, we saw in the trade period they ideally would have liked to have traded out a bit of a senior experience to get in another pick. They weren't able to do it, but this is a long-term play for the Hawks, and they've just got to make sure they get the right pick. So they're taking their time,
Sam Mitchell seems to be pretty hands-on from what we've heard. He's got a keen eye for the draft himself. So
and he was part of your draft as well, Joey.
He was the pick before me, pick 36 to the Hawks. And
did they get that right?
The following pick, I think they'll be pretty happy with the pick they took. Yeah.
Do you remember Sam Mitchell coming through, Shifter?
I do. Like, he's a dual best and fairest winner at the Eastern Ranges and wasn't
played
picked.
At Box Hill.
And wasn't picked. He had to win a Liston trophy, which he did on his pathway through to becoming then a rising star in the AFL and then a champion of the game. So what a story on perseverance.
That's right.
Just believing in your talent.
The great story for any kid that doesn't get drafted tonight, that there's still other ways to get there and become one of the all-time greats.
With pick 26, Hawthorn have selected Connor McDonald from the Dandenong Stingrays.
Connor McDonald, Shifter, talk to us about him.
Halbury College boy from out there at the Dandenong Stingrays. Like what I've seen of him. There's one night at Frankston this year where Eastern played Dandenong and this boy, it was frosty, cold conditions and he was the best player on the ground. Keeps his feet, great at stoppages, uses the ball well. Coached by Matty Lloyd out there at Halbury too, so he'd have a good handle on this boy's ability. Can play on the wing or play inside, but he's got that ability to just read the play, the footy now stuff. Love those boys that get it off hands before it hits the deck, you know, and you see that at stoppage, off hands, even off packs, you know, they're seeing the cues far earlier than the lesser players. They're just reading the game so well. He averaged 30 disposals a game, so a ball magnet as well. No surprise to see him go. It was just a case of wear.
Yeah, we spoke about his coach, Sam Mitchell. There's a lot of similarities in regards to just being a ball magnet. Averaged, I think, 30 touches a game at the NAB League. Just knows how to get the footy. Smart IQ. Just one of those natural footballers. So not necessarily the best athlete out in this draft, but just knows how to play footy. And I think they've got themselves a good one there. That he's probably ready to play, pretty early next season.
Mick Ablett, you like this pick?
Yeah, certainly do, Tom. He's obviously from my neck of the woods out in the Dandenong Stingrays, so very happy to see another one of those boys go. But I liken him a lot to a former Dandenong Stingray, Luke Davies-Uniacke. He's just, like you say, and Joey mentioned it, very, very good footy IQ. And one of the things I loved when you watch his vision and you look, he gets into that spot for that 45 kick. We hear a lot about that in modern-day football and its ability to open up the game. He just does that exceptionally well.
With pick 27, Carlton have selected Jesse Motlop from South Fremantle.
This production line of Motlops just continues. Shifter, tell us about Jesse Motlop.
Oh, well, you've seen a smart forward here and they can't match the bid. That's the interesting part here. So his dad, Daniel, he had some tricks, didn't he? I remember Daniel developing later physically. I remember seeing him as a very small boy at 17, 18 years of age, ends up a pretty tall and smart player. This boy's got all the tricks. First heard about him when he's a rising star up in the NT in about January, playing a game up at St Mary's. A scout was up there and thought that much of the way he played. He sent a text down, watch out for this kid. Well, of course, he ends up back in WA playing this year. Played in the grand final at senior level in the Waffle. Played in the state games for WA. So typical Motlop ability around the goals, innate ability to spot them and very creative.
And he's got a build ready to play senior footy pretty early on. He played about 30 games of football this year. So while some of the Victorian kids, Kevin, only played 5 or 6 games, he played in the NT, as you said, then played Waffle Colt, a little bit of senior footy, school football as well, and of course Western Australia. So he's had a really busy period of playing a lot of games of football and he's just the best natural small forward in this draft pool.
And Mick, you've seen a fair bit of him over there in the West as well this year.
Yeah, certainly have. Look, what impressed me about him when I went and saw him play live was his ability to play higher up the ground. He really challenges the defence. You quite often saw the defenders looking around, not knowing, is he got up in front of me, is he snuck out the back? So he's one of those natural talents that really finds space easily and just creates opportunities for his teammates around him. He played 8 games of league football and looked more than comfortable at the level against men. And as Shifter said, including a grand final at Optus Stadium, unfortunately a losing one. But nonetheless, the kid just looked very, very suited to league football and someone that'll adapt at Carlton, I think, very, very comfortably.
Yeah, and I love this pick for the Blues because it fills a need as well, a specific need. We know they addressed their midfield through the trade period of free agency, getting Chera and George Hewitt. But the small forwards become a bit of an issue because obviously Eddie Betts has retired, the great. Gibbons has moved on. They've probably only got Zach Fisher and maybe Owies at the moment, so they're a bit light on. Well, this guy will fit a need beautifully. He's a goal kicker. As Mick Ablett said, he applies pressure as well. He loves the defensive stuff, can get up and back. And he's a player that is going to put bums on seats for a long time. So how lucky Carlton fans, Eddie Eddie Betts retires, and now they get Jesse Motlop, who they can sit back and enjoy for hopefully the next 10 to 15 years.
It's just so great to see so many Motlops coming through the system. You think that they're done, and then another one comes in. And Daniel Motlop was a fantastic player. You would have played a bit against him, actually.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, absolutely. Came through the same time as Daniel Motlop, and he was another one that had all the tricks. He was a highly talented forward in that front half, and now Jesse will do similar things. And as I said, he's got a build ready to probably play pretty early in the season for Carlton, I would think, and a really good kid too, really likeable, really impressionable. So yeah, I think he'll do wonderful things.
Might play against his uncle Stevie Motlop.
Imagine that.
He's got some of the tricks of Stevie too, so we'll look forward to that.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Now Richmond is up next. We know that Nick Austin and Michael Voss have been doing their thing for Carlton. The Tigers are up. What sort of player are they looking for, Shifter, do you think, and Joey?
Well, no doubt it has to be midfielders, I would think. Shifter last night, they're probably a bit of a surprise. They took the two sort of intercept defenders in Gibcus and Brown. So I would think certainly now they would focus in these picks in the 20s on the best available midfielders.
So how do you do this? They've got the next 3 picks. Do you just pick them off your whiteboard, or are you more strategic than that?
I mean, it's hard to know. I would think by taking the 2 best tall defenders last night, they would be pretty much looking at those midfield types today. Whether they keep all 3 picks, maybe they might try and potentially trade one out to come back in next year. We'll just have to wait and see. But when you think about their list, Trent Cotchin, Edwards, Lambert and Dustin Martin are all now 30 plus. Presty is 29.
And Tarrant's come in.
Yeah, so they've got some sort of older players that have been so great for that footy club for a number of years, but they probably need to top up now in that midfield. I mean, Collier Dawkins, Thompson Dow and Jack Ross have all been in the system for a couple of years, still trying to find their feet and establish themselves. We know they've got some other players, but maybe we think they might take some of the midfielders available.
With pick 28, Richmond have selected Tyler Sonsie from the Eastern Rangers.
Yeah, just so natural. The MVP back in the under-16s, a great point of reference for these boys out of Victoria that mightn't have played in their 17th year and only had a half a year in their 18th. Go back to when all things were equal and they played a normal year of footy and represented the state, and he was the MVP then. So very, very gifted player. And we mentioned his game. The one game he had up at VFL level, had 22, looked very much at home, kicked a brilliant goal from about, or a couple of goals from about 50.
All right, we've got Tyler Sonsie on the line. Tyler, next year, if you play senior footy, you'll be playing alongside Trent Cotchin, Dustin Martin, Jack Riewoldt. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, it's unreal, really. Like, it's an amazing experience to be with them, and yeah, just learn off it as much as I can.
You've got your manager behind you, Nick Geeshan. You've got your family there. What does it mean to them, do you think?
Yeah, it's unreal. Like, they all know I go for Richmond. Like a dream come true, really. So yeah, they're over the moon.
Congratulations, Tyler. I see you've got all your mates there as well. It's, hopefully you enjoy the night. Which one of your mates point out is going to be best on tonight now that you've got drafted? Who's going to celebrate the hardest?
Like Connor McDonald.
So hang on, so 2 of you in the same room that got drafted?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Connor. There you go. Well done, boys. That's it's pretty exciting for the both of them.
Hey, just a quick question. Tell us about where you grew up, where you're from, what you did as a teenager, and what sort of player you are, for those who don't know.
Yeah, so I'm more of a midfield forward. I like to hit the scoreboard a bit. Just grew up around Roeville and played junior footy there.
What about you, Connor? Are you proud of your mate? What are your thoughts on that, potentially playing against him next year, Hawthorn versus Richmond?
Yeah, well, I've always played with him, so it'll be a good experience to play against him. Yeah, just super proud of him, and yeah, we've played with each other. In juniors for a few years, and yeah, it's just really good to have him here and go through the same experience as him.
And how's your last 24 hours been, Connor? Sitting, watching the draft last night, seeing a few of the boys get drafted, having a sleep. How'd you sleep last night? It must be a relief now to finally have heard your name called out.
Yeah, well, I wasn't really expecting anything last night, so I was looking forward to tonight, and yeah, just so grateful that I got to experience it with one of my good mates in Tyler, and yeah, we're just really looking forward to the future now.
Well done, Connor. Well done, Tyler. Great to chat to you both. Enjoy the night and make sure you celebrate.
Cheers.
That's awesome. How good's that? 2 best mates sitting and getting drafted together, Joey. That's what you love to see.
Absolutely it is. And a lot of these boys all know each other now. They all go through the academies and the state sides and play at their local footy clubs together. And then they go off and they go and forge their own careers in different teams. And, I mean, how lucky are those 2 boys, though, really, when you think about it? One's gone to Hawthorn, one of the great clubs of the modern era, and then the other one in Richmond, who has been the greatest club in the last 4 or 5 years. So they're going to go to great environments. They're going to learn from the best, and hopefully sets them up to have wonderful careers.
So I said Nick Geeshan's behind them as well. So is Nathan Freeman, who got drafted to Collingwood, went to St Kilda, so he's in player management as well with Connors. And, well, this is Tyler. This is his work.
Yeah, this is his work, and as we said, just a really natural footballer. I see a little bit of, think of Steve Canilio, the way that he's, when he's up and about at his best, he can kick both sides, he can hit the scoreboard. He's got that footy nous. He knew there, he was late to get to that stoppage. He's got a really good footy IQ. You can see there, picking the footy off, reading it well, and able to get forward, hit the scoreboard. He's had some injury troubles as well, but just smart, got a good goal sense, working through the contest. He's got that ability to win on the inside and outside. One
of the great recruits, Noel Judkin, said to me once about picking Dane Swan and James Hird. It's that ability to grab it before it hits the deck, off hands, whether set a bounce or whether it's a crumb from a pack up forward. The built-in IQ of where the ball will go. That's the great ability of players like Tyler Sonsie. And the confidence with these kicks. So this is what we're seeing, all the great kicks to come out of the under-18s, pull that ball through the corridor, take the risk, and clever with his hands. So just another natural footballer, which I love to see. We love to see just these natural footballers. Connor was the same. They just know how to play the game, know how to find the footy, and they'll adapt at any level because they've got footy smarts.
And the Tigers are looking for a quick bounce as well. I know they didn't have a great year this year, but they'll be looking for these young players to come in and make an impact immediately.
With pick 29, Richmond have selected Samuel Banks from the Tasmania Devils.
Fantastic. He's the first Tasmanian boy taken, and a star he will be. I'll back you on that one. Start at the start of the year, then hurt a wrist. And again, this is the story of building your resilience. Things can't always go to plan. And so he missed a fair bit of the season and come back with that wrist. It still needed a bit of work after the season was over. It wasn't quite right, tackling one hand, but still showed his class. I liken him to a Bailey Dale, back behind the ball when he plays half-back, but he can play on the wing as well. He debuted for the Tassie Devils, their under-18 side over there, as a 16-year-old and held his own. He's barely 16 at the time. So he's following Taron Thomas, Will. There's the next one out of Tassie. He hadn't let us down. We noticed that most people hadn't put him in 40 or 50. They'd forgotten about him. Don't forget about this boy. He's a natural player, very gifted. He even made the team of the year based on just a handful of games because he's got absolute class, and that's with his use of the footy.
Yeah, so a bit more of an outside player, and that's the ability when you've got 3 picks in a row. For Richmond, they can maybe mix up and get that balance right with who they want to add to that midfield, and he's certainly got that outside class and run and dash that can maybe make it as a half-back flanker.
Mick, Shifter said that some clubs may have forgotten about him. You didn't forget about him. You thought he was a good player all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's a player for mine that's just always involved in the contest, and that's what I loved. He just tends to hang around, give himself every opportunity to be involved, whether that's at stoppage, whether it's getting as an attacking two-type player that gets the handball receive or whatever it happens to be. Really, really hard worker and a traditional Tassie product that certainly not afraid of contact, that's for sure. So the Tigers have got themselves a nice ball-winning, tough inside mid that can certainly create opportunities around him.
We can probably put him under the banner of a draft bolter here, Joey.
Yeah, well, the rankings there had him at 46, as Shifter said, taken inside the top 30. And as we've said, because, again, there's been so many players this year that we haven't seen a lot of football because of, obviously, COVID, particularly in Victoria. But a lot of these players have had injuries as well. And as Shifter said, he had a wrist injury, hadn't played a lot of football. So everyone's sort of draft orders will be quite varied compared to previous years because of lack of exposure, and you're really speculating. So the list managers and the recruiters are certainly going to have their work cut out because they are speculating with a lot of these players. There isn't as much football to see, particularly with the Victorian kids, as we've seen with some of the Western Australians that have been able to play a full season.
Shifter, do you think the speculation would help and hurt some kids? Some kids might actually be better off for not playing so much football, and some might actually be worse off?
Yeah, you can overanalyse, can't you, when you're looking at a player? You start to come up with all the things they can't do rather than the things they can. Go back to when they played well. That's the way I look at it for those that have had interrupted a couple of years, and that's where I go with Banks. He was the MVP back there a couple of years ago at under 16 level. That form stands up for mine because the best kids are well prepared that you're playing against, and he looked an absolute star there off half-back and playing on the wing. The people of Tassie are great footy judges too. Matty Armstrong, people like that have worked in the program for many years will rank this boy as a player for sure at AFL level. And I agree completely. He was injured when the Australian side got together early in the year and played against Geelong at VFL level. But the way he conducted himself around the group, he was a young leader. I like that about him, and I think he's got a future ahead of him.
Yeah, and that's why you get a feel this year, probably more than any other, you're going to find a diamond in the rough. Some clubs are going to get a beauty in the later rounds because that we just haven't seen them enough, and you're speculating. And there's going to be development, and when kids aren't playing a lot of football, they develop at different rates. So don't be surprised out of this draft pool. We'll look back in 5-6 years' time and we'll wonder, how did this player get through to pick 30, pick 35, pick 40? But it would simply have been a lack of exposure, and someone's been prepared to take the risk, and they turn out to be a superstar of the competition. I've got no doubt someone in these later rounds will be an absolute beauty.
Shane Edwards is an All-Australian. He's also in that list management room at the moment. He was in there last year, he's in there again, so maybe we have a future list manager in the making there, a bit like Andrew Mackie at Geelong, just trying to find him a career after playing football, and we've got Brad Scott not far away.
With pick 30, Richmond have selected Judson Clark from the Dandenong Stingrays.
Well, finally, it's about goals. I think the game's about kicking goals, and we've got a small forward, the most agile player tested at the start of the year, sub 8 seconds for the AFL agility run. And then he had a day that we all love seeing. Sam Darcy at one end for Vic Metro kick 6. The boy for Vic Country was Judson Clark kicking 5. They were spectacular goals down at Werribee, I think it was. Love seeing that. He dodges around them and he's got radar around the goals. He's got that, a bit of Tom Papley about him, you know, with a bit of a strut, and I'm going to kick this, I'll take you on, see you later. Around he goes on the left. He's a lefty, and that performance reminds us that this boy's got some real AFL attributes. He come off an ACL too. Many of the boys have had that at some stage in their background, a 16th or 17th year, so he's had that adversity. Then it tests your resolve and your love of the game a fair bit to get back from that to your best, and he certainly found the best that day.
Well, this selection is right in Richmond's wheelhouse. These are the type of players they've been drafting for years. These smalls that can play midfield forward. They've got that running power. You think of, you know, Jack Graham and Castagna and Rioli, Lambert, Dan Butler we saw as the comparisons. Yeah, they love those players that have got that ability to get up the field, get back towards goal, hit the scoreboard, apply pressure, but also win it through the midfield. So it just ticks the box for the type of recruit that Richmond have been known for, and it's been a big part of their success in recent years.
Mick, do you like the look of Judson? Do you think he can play some senior footy next year?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. I really like, as Joey just mentioned, his ability to tie in with someone like a Daniel Rioli, where, you know, they can alternate getting up the ground, where they obviously find the footy. We saw his numbers come up on the ball where he averages just shy of 18 disposals, so there's no issue there. And then the ability to get back and really hit the scoreboard's important for the Tigers.
With pick 31, the West Coast Eagles have selected Brady Howe from Peel Thunder.
Peel Thunder boy shifter. No surprise, or how do you read that selection?
Terrific pick, and sometimes it can be your last game. And he debuted at senior level in the last game of the Waffle this year. Didn't look out of place at all. Had 22 disposals and showcased his potential. Can play that lead-up role, 5th and 6th as a forward, but even can push from half-back. Lovely size, 189 too, so much scope about him. This boy he's from Harvey Football Club down in the Peel Thunder region. And having seen him in those rep games, I thought he's one to watch, but that breakout game at senior level really pitched him in as a likely draftee.
Yeah, another one with good speed that can play either through the wing or that mid-forward, that high forward, that running ability that we know the modern game, particularly those smalls that play in the front half. You've got to have that running ability to get up in the midfield, get back towards goal. He can hit the scoreboard, and they've kept another one local for the West Coast Eagles, and another Western Australian drafted. All
right, Mick, take us into WA camp. How does this boy play?
Yeah, great to see West Coast take another local product from WA. This kid came through that same sort of system and pathway as Jai Amos that we saw taken in the top 10 last night by Fremantle. I remember seeing they were the two players that stood out of that group coming from that southwest region. He just provides a really difficult matchup. I remember watching him going, geez, this kid's got some footy smarts. He just sees things unfold that split second earlier than others, and he's just as adept at ground level, but at 189 centimetres, he shot up quite a bit, and he's quite strong in the air as well. So he's going to provide some headaches for opposition teams, and another kid out of a really good country zone over here in WA. And I know former Peel talent manager John Dietz, that went on to work at the Gold Coast Suns, has always been a really big rap on this kid, so fantastic to see him get his opportunity.
Joey, it seems like there's lots of clubs at the moment taking local kids. Freo take kids from WA, West Coast just then, Geelong taking Geelong Falcons. Must be if there's a 50-50 weighing up decision, they take the kid that's in their region.
Well, I think so. I think it's just a bit of a bonus. If you've got a player that you really like, he's local, you know, you don't have to relocate, you don't have to worry necessarily about them potentially, you know, moving it and the go-home factor. I think it's just a bonus because they certainly have them rated where they have them on their list. They want them at the football club, and West Coast have got another one they've been able to keep from WA.
With pick 32, the Geelong Cats have selected James Willis from North Adelaide.
Yeah, no surprise to me. Tough, competitive beast. Don't you love to see those kids get through? And he's got great natural athleticism. He's got the beautiful combination of speed and endurance. That I looked at his tape and just the way he attacks the ball. He's ferocious at the footy. Then at the end of the year, he just missed the national games, copped an injury, so you didn't see him up against the best from WA. They met on 3 occasions to give everyone the chance to compare them. So he slipped under the radar with having that injury at the end. So he's a boy from Ingle Farm Footy Club, the Heights School. Plays at North Adelaide, but prolific ball winner. He was averaging in the 20, about the 25 for the year in his games at under 18 level. He even had some 34s and kicking goals and looked to be breaking out as a real star. But that injury kept him off the radar. But the Cats haven't missed him.
Yeah, another one that had injuries as a junior. There's been a lot of these players that have had injuries at such a young age. He had an ankle injury, a shifter sort of late in the year, but powerful, competitive, strong tackler, contested ball. You know, the type of player that Geelong love to have at their football club.
Mick, you surprised? You like it? What were you expecting with Geelong's pick here?
Oh, I labelled him the finisher. In the stuff that I saw, he just had this knack of just really nailing that final possession, and whether that was hitting the scoreboard or hitting someone up inside forward 50, I just really liked that polish and that class. And we saw on his scout profile there, Tommy, that it said a burst of speed. He's got that real change of speed, which allows him to, whether it's evade somebody that's just about to lay a tackle or step through a contest, very, very polished product, and gives Geelong a nice bit of outside class, which I think they've been craving for a little bit now. So nice selection.
All right, the Swans are up next. Mick, we'll keep checking back in with you over in WA. There's a bit of activity there as well. I should have said before that Jack Riewoldt and Samuel Banks, that'll be good. A couple of Tasmanian products playing for Richmond. I'm sure Jack Riewoldt, who's a friend of Fox Footy here and one of us, will enjoy that very much. All right, the Swans just have one pick. What are they looking at, Shifter? What sort of player? Who's on the board?
I don't know where they'll go. I'll be guessing here. Jesus, I can see a Corey Warner there. I wonder if he could join his brother, Chad.
Yep.
He's an attractive type of player for mine, a lefty from over there at East Fremantle. East Fremantle had a great group too this year, a great group of boys in the mix to get through and be drafted. Could be him. Young Warner's a bit like an Andrew Gaff, if you can imagine Andrew as a young fella getting up and down the ground, an enormous runner, an athlete that just links up so well from right deep in defence and can hit the scoreboard as well. Yeah, and he showed at the draft combine. Sometimes just a little thing bobs up. Well, he did a 100-centimetre running vertical jump. He's got some power there. You love to see that from a smaller player. He's just around the 6-foot mark, 182, 183 centimetres. It could be him. Well, let's see.
Well, there's a bid that's come for the St Kilda Academy player, Machito Owens. What can you tell us about him, Shifter?
Well, I think the Saints will match the bid. That's what I'm going to say straight away, this boy. Have they? Straight away. It took them 10 seconds. Yeah, Owens is the boy that take your opportunity message comes for mine. The rep game, Metro versus Country, last-minute change in Mitch Owens. Someone's out injured, you grab your chance. He had 29. He's in the best half a dozen on the ground against the best kids of Victoria, and that made a statement that you might be good enough. Well, he was. He continued that form then back at Sandringham the next couple of weeks, and you thought, gee, we've found one here. You dig back, he's had the growth spurt. In the last 12, 18 months, he's grown 12 centimetres. He went from the 180 or the 179, run-of-the-mill midfielder, I suppose, to the boy that can mark the ball, great at stoppages, can run. So it's that late spurt in his 17th, 18th year, growth spurt, that's allowed him to be the player he's turned out to be.
And it looks like St Kilda will match this bid, but they're not giving up a lot there, are they? They're going to lose pick 48 and 54, and they'll get back 59 and they get themselves Owens. So
this is the reason they did what they did in the trade period, though, to get themselves more picks in that sort of third, fourth round territory.
Yeah, they knew they had a couple of these Academy NGA boys coming through. Owens is one of them, as Shifter said, 191 centimetres. Again, one of those powerful sort of players that can use their size and strength to get out of stoppage, and Japanese heritage. And I remember a game, there's a game, Kevin, I'm not sure, Mentone Grammar, he played for Mentone Grammar against Ivanhoe School game at the Grammar. He had 43 disposals, 20 contested, kicked 4 goals. So he's certainly got some high-end talent about him.
With pick 33, St Kilda have matched the Sydney Swans bid for Machito Owens from the Sandringham Dragons.
And you think, Shifty, that's probably a bit lower than you had him ranked? You had him ranked a bit higher, Owens, than 33?
He's a chance to get a bid last night, we thought.
Yeah.
There was some interest in him definitely late, and that was always a possibility. So that's how even this group is through the, probably 15 through to 40. Very, very even, and people rate them a wee bit differently. But, yeah, I love the growth spurt. I love the pick-me game too, where you make a statement that I'm good enough. And wouldn't that, you'd go away from that thinking that yourself. So then carried on immediately with his form in the next number of weeks, and obviously with that school game as well, that he's going to be an exciting player for the Saints fans.
Sounds like he
played a bit of basketball, but grew 10 centimetres in the last 12 months.
Yeah.
So he's really shot up and got a lot of upside, real upside about him. He's had a lot of injuries as well. Another one who's had injuries, but certainly got upside.
You like the look of him, Mick?
Yeah, the Saints have been delighted with this because, as we saw up on the board there too, it doesn't affect their draft too much. They slide back a couple of positions and they've got a player in the door that just covers the ground so well. That's when you watch some players play, they just glide across the ground. They cover a lot of ground with ease, and he's certainly one of them. And I just love that initial burst that he's got. He creates separation from his opponents and just allows himself a few extra seconds to dispose of the footy and make the right decision. So really good pick-up by the Saints. And as I said, the fact that it's come a little bit later hasn't cost them much at all.
And I think it fills a need as well for St Kilda when you think about their list. I mean, they probably need that sort of size of a player that can burst out of stoppage, that mid-forward. I mean, Jade Gresham's probably their one that can play mid-forward, but he's obviously much smaller. Then they've got those real solid, consistent, tough worker bees in the midfield, led by Jack Steele, but, Crouch and Seb Ross and Hanbury when he's fit. So I think he just adds a different dynamic, and maybe that's why they lent towards Wanganeen Malira on the outside, because they knew they've got a couple of these sort of players that can play through that midfield forward coming in later in the draft.
And he's running under their nose as well. Jack Henty runs the NGA at St Kilda, and they've got a fair few boys who are ready to be taken either in the draft or in the rookie draft maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, Nick Dalsano coaching them as well, so I'm sure he's put some work into them, and hopefully they can have an impact for St Kilda sooner rather than later, although they probably are a bit more of a project player.
What about the Swans here? Shifter, Kinnear Beatson's weighing things up. They've obviously made one bid.
They might make another. There's still some good boys there that Ken will probably want to keep the other clubs honest on, so he may make some bids. Marcus Winhager is one of those too, another next-gen academy boy from St Kilda, for instance. He could be of interest at this stage. I like a boy called Cooper Hamilton too that's really got some terrific upside for mine that hasn't been taken as yet, a boy from Bendigo, an elite runner. He smashed the 2K record, but he's got some, a bit like a Trent Rivers type, a real athletic type that can come from half-back. I've seen him go forward a couple of times for Bendigo too and take marks across the pack, that power up in the air as well. But again, he's down at Caulfield Grammar. I didn't see school footy, but seen a bit of him play at the Bendigo level, and I think he's got some real AFL attributes and hasn't been called as yet.
I had here in the notes for Sydney that their needs was probably an inside mid because they had Kennedy, Parker obviously getting on. They lost Hewitt. Well, they took that last night, didn't they, with Sheldrick, who is really that inside midfielder who will replace those Bulls for them. So there may be a key defender, might be someone they look at because you think about Tom McCartan, who's wonderful, but Rampy's getting on a bit in age. They've got Malik and they might be a bit thin in the back line. So maybe they're looking at seeing if they can find an up-and-coming key defender to help fill the post. They were linked to Brown, I think it was, weren't they, last night, but they didn't get him.
Yep.
So potentially they're looking at some sort of rebounding or key defender.
You often talk about the need to have lots of midfielders though, Joey. Can you have too many midfielders or too many inside midfielders?
I don't necessarily think you can have too many midfielders. We've seen Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs and the sides that are at the top of the ladder. Because if you have a heap of midfielders, they can then spill out to the periphery. You can put one on a wing like an Angus Brayshaw. You can move someone to half back. You can play at a half forward like James Harms did for Melbourne and have a real impact. So midfielders are always the safe option that can then spill out, but sometimes you might need the needs basis. Sydney have got a fair bit going for them in the midfield. You think of Ollie Florence and they've got a couple of the kids. They had a great draft last year with those academy products that, they're either looking at they're just the best available or particularly maybe a bit more of a needs basis where I think could be a potential defender.
And Zach Taylor's still available as well. Oh, we've got Brad Scott coming up now.
With pick 34, the Sydney Swans have selected Matthew Roberts from South Adelaide.
Another South Adelaide product.
It's their second. That's fantastic. He's a no-fuss player, and he's your midfielder on the inside too. Stepped up and played some good senior footy at South Adelaide with Jason Horne-Francis as well. Even in a final, kicked a couple in a final. Was their most consistent player in those national games against WA this year. So a lefty, burst from the centre. Liking him to Jared Lyons, no fuss player in that sense. He just keeps getting in the right spots, doing the right thing most of the time. Good kick of the ball, clean hands. I love the clean hands players. I just switch them pretty quick if they fumble 2 or 3 times. You can't afford to at the pace that the AFL's played. And he's a great safe pick, I think, Matty Roberts for the Sydney Swans.
Yeah, again, I love this. Just, again, a natural footballer. You see there maybe a bit of a slight question mark on his athleticism, but you know what he can do? He knows how to find the footy. Yeah. He knows how to use it. He's a beautiful distributor. You can see there his left leg. He can play in a number of positions, and I think he's probably one that is a bit ready-made, a bit like Sheldrick. They can come in and have an impact straight away, so it's a great get. All
right, let's have a chat to him. Matty Roberts joins us on the line, presumably from Adelaide. You must be stoked. Tell us how you're feeling.
Oh, it's just lost for words, really. Like, just over the moon to be given an opportunity, and just so grateful for it. I'm so pumped.
Hey, Matty, you've got a mate there in an Adelaide jumper. You're going to have to get him a Sydney Swans jumper pretty soon. Can you just have a word to him?
Yeah. He's like, oh, maybe I'll just wear it just in case. But, yeah, I'm sure he'll swap that one over pretty soon.
Matty, you're a teammate of Jason Horne-Francis. Did you speak to him last night? How was he? And it must be great now that at some stage you're going to get to line up against him.
Yeah, I spoke to him a bit last night. He's had a fair bit going on. But, yeah, I'm just super proud of him and super pumped for him to be that #1 pick. And, yeah, I'm keen to match up on him whenever that may come.
That would be very exciting. Matty, are you looking forward to actually moving to Sydney and getting to a new state and a new home?
Yeah, it's gonna be good fun. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into it.
How's your mum going to be, mate? Is she going to be upset, or will she be okay with you moving into state?
She's probably gonna struggle a bit, I think. You're right. She sort of kicked me out of home 3 years ago to go to boarding school, so she'll be right.
All right, Matty, really well done tonight. Congratulations, and looking forward to seeing what you can do for the Sydney Swans.
Oh, that's great. There you go. He's going to enjoy the night with the boys too now.
No worries. Goodbye to you as well, Matty. Fantastic stuff. They've got a ripper, and North Melbourne looking to get their version of him right now.
With pick 35, North Melbourne have selected Paul Curtis from the Western Jets.
Yeah, boy from the Western Jets and a goal kicker again. I love it. The small forwards, or he's not that small. They're coming into. He's a 185-centimetre boy. He had a pick me. I reckon it was a quarter one day. The first time I'd spotted him playing for the Jets against Sandringham one day. 4 goals in that period. He was super. Just one of those kids that in front first to move. I think our coaches have told us that for years and years in footy, and he was exactly that. He read the play perfectly, come into the forward area, and he had one-touch hands out in front, and then dobbed them everywhere for his set shots on the left foot. Then he repeated that form when he played for Vic Metro, straight up into that squad, and then averaged 2 goals a game in all the rep series trials, and then the game against Vic Country. So grabbed his chance when it first bobbed up, and then followed up with some good rep games.
Yeah, nice bit of balance for the Kangaroos with who they've drafted. Obviously Horne-Francis, they took Goda, and now they've got someone that can hit the scoreboard and impact kicking goals. All
right, let's go to Marvel Stadium, where Sarah Ollie has the recruiting manager from Richmond, Matt Clark. What's the vibe down there, Sarah?
Well, Matt is very happy because not only has he nailed his first 5 draft picks, his words, not mine, but he's the first recruiter done for this evening. But, Matty, you must be pretty stoked with the haul of Josh Gibcus, Tom Brown, Tyler Sonsie, Samuel Banks and Judson Clark.
Yeah, really excited. Fulfilled some really good needs in our list that we thought, particularly early. We thought there's some good players that come through to the 20s, and, we're rapt to get our boys.
Now, last night, David King said Gibcus was the steal of the first night, but you're telling me that another player within the 5 has more talent. Who's that?
Josh is all our boys are talented, but obviously tonight, Tyler Sonsie, one of the more talented players in the draft, and he's had some injury issues in the last 18 months. It's probably just stunted his development, and obviously COVID along with that with a lot of the boys. So, but we think Tyler's got great upside. He's a Richmond fan, so he's pretty excited. So no, we're really excited.
And the Tigers do have a bit of a romance with Tasmania and also Clarence.
Yeah, another Clarence boy in Sammy Banks. So so we've obviously had a lot of Tasmanians come through the system. system with some of our legends that are one still playing at the moment. So great to have Banksy on board. He's a quality kid.
Now, we know drafts can really propel a team towards a premiership. In 5, 6, 7 years' time, will we be looking back and going, wow, this was a pretty impressive haul from the Tigers?
Oh, we hope so, yeah. I mean, it's great when you can bring together a group of boys in this number, and hopefully they can play together and come through as a wave like we've had in the past with a few of our guys coming from the same draft. If you can nail some picks in the same draft and they play a lot of footy together, they can take you a long way.
Well, 5 picks inside the top 30. Well done. You've earned a nice long sleep and perhaps a glass of red, Matty.
Yeah, I think that might happen a bit later on for sure.
Beautiful.
Thank you to Sarah and thank you to Matty Clark from Richmond. So 3 picks in a row for the Tigers. It's pretty rare you get to see that really ever since Gold Coast and the Giants entered the competition. They'd be pretty happy with how they went.
Yeah, absolutely. And as they said, Tyler Sonsie is the one that has got that real upside. He's a high-end talent. As I said, had some injuries and haven't been able to necessarily get that continuity with his football. But they'll be wrapped with what they've done. And as you said, they've just stocked up and topped up with 5, really talented young kids to go with the players they're going to get back next year. No doubt that Richmond are going to be a team that you'd think are challenging again for a top 4 spot next year, but at the same time they're replenishing their youth with this couple of key defenders and some midfielders. So you'd think the Tigers are going to be playing finals footy for a long time to come.
It's been a while since we've had a pick swap. We're waiting to see one come through, potentially to do with the Adelaide Crows or even Collingwood or GWS or whoever else wants to get it done. It's interesting, isn't it, though? These clubs, they want to be inventive, they want to be attacking, but more often than not, they just go with what they know and the players that they know really well.
Yeah, probably a little bit of a surprise shift that we haven't seen more trading up. We'd sort of heard throughout today that there were some clubs that would be looking to get up higher into the 20s and try and nab one of these talented midfielders, particularly through this draft. We haven't seen that. So they've stuck to the order that we came into tonight with. So that's interesting. So whether the clubs ahead of them, felt that they also had some talent there, but we thought there might have been a little bit more action than there has been.
Yeah, I think it needs 2 to tango, and I think the one that wouldn't tango is the one that's looking at the board now saying, I'm happy where I'm placed. There's still good players on the board. I'm not going to give up my positioning on this right at the minute for that offer that they haven't considered good enough.
So there could be a trade here. The Crows, I mean, they would be used in the trade. They were at the forefront of a discussion with the Sydney Swans regarding Jordan Dawson. They wanted to be aggressive. They wanted to stay in the first round. They're happy to move back later picks. They've got 30 seconds left to make their call. Wouldn't be surprised if a club is going to them now and saying, hey, what about this?
Well, this might be an opportunity for a club that wants to get into the draft, get higher up the order. We've seen a lot of clubs, Tommy, in this draft period that started off with some early picks. So you think about some clubs like the Western Bulldogs and Collingwood, obviously, Essendon, Port Adelaide, Brisbane, that had a lot of early picks and then haven't got any picks in this sort of second or third round through this period. Even Essendon that might want to get back in. So maybe that's the case at the moment. Adelaide may be a club happy to maybe bank a future draft because they are still part of a rebuild. They might slide back a little bit here potentially and be able to get some extra trade currency for next year's draft.
And I'm sure they've got some players they're looking at next year as well, some South Australian-born players, Isaac Rankin, Jake Lukosius from Gold Coast. They're both out of contract as well, and they've got some money to spend in their salary cap. So we're still waiting to see what the Crows are going to do here.
This is one of those unusual events, the draft, where clubs all want to come out with a positive. They're going to have a message back to their fans, back to their own playing group about what the next couple of years looks like. They normally tack it on the back of something they've done at draft time, whether it's the type of player they got or they've pushed up to get a player that they think is really going to help their group in a certain way. That's the time 18 clubs come up with, we've done well here.
And, well, this is where clubs' draft boards would be looking very different right now, wouldn't they? Because once you get to this part, it's really the eye of the beholder and everyone's seen something different in different players. So Adelaide might be comfortable that the player that they really like, they might be able to slide back and also, get something else. You can see there some of the labs. Zach Taylor's probably one that's surprised. I really like him. I think he's a terrific midfielder, again, a natural footballer. There hasn't been a bid for Faye yet. Howes was one that we thought there was some sort of early phantom drafts that had him pick 19 to Melbourne, so he's also on the board. Maybe it is Melbourne at pick 39 who see Howes still on the board, who might want to slide up and nab him as well.
Yeah, I'm told that there's a trade in the works between the Crows and the Demons, so we'll wait and see exactly what that is and how it transpires, whether future picks are involved. I think the Pies and GWS as well are involved in trade discussions regarding future picks, which we care about, but what we want to know is what picks they are this year at the moment.
Yeah, the pick swaps don't really interest us too much, Tom. But their clubs, they put a lot of thought into it. There's a lot of science that goes behind it to be able to have a stronger draft hand the following year. Clubs come in and out of the picks. I think there's already been, Maxie Lawton was saying upstairs, there's something like already half the future third-round picks next year have already swapped hands.
It's incredible.
Between the trade periods and whatever. So there's a lot more of that going on as it becomes a bit more sophisticated with the recruiting and the points and all those sorts of things. So they're taking their time.
So that's Jason Taylor on the phone, is the list boss at Melbourne Footy Club. Justin Reid is his equivalent at the Adelaide Crows. We'll wait and see what happens there, Shifter.
Just talking about the future picks, they haven't got the same line of sight as they've had because of COVID on their future picks. Most years you've seen the kids at under 16 level that a whole futures program in their 17th year, including a curtain raiser grand final day of the best 50 in the country, and then they go away saying, oh, gee, this looks a special group. I need to get into the first round, or I can't give up my first round choice next year. So they haven't had that lead in. They have seen a couple of state games at under 17 level. The two Vics met on a couple of occasions, and so did SAWA, but they haven't been able to compare them all. But it still looks a pretty good group, but without being able to see them all on the one stage.
So I'm told the trade between the Adelaide Crows and the Melbourne Footy Club wasn't approved. It's been declined by the AFL. So we'll go back to square one and see what the Crows want to do with this pick 36. That must have been Melbourne trying to get up and get a player that they think the Crows might be taking with pick 36. And for whatever reason, the AFL said no.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to find out why that hasn't been approved, what it was, why it wasn't. But the Crows have kept pick 36.
With pick 36, the Adelaide Crows have selected Jake Saligo from the Eastern Rangers.
Good young player, this. Good young player, a midfielder. 180 centimetres, not over big, a bit like you, Joey. I think he's just a smart player. Love all he does in level of consistency. His kicking is great depth. Games where he'd kick it from outside 50. So for his size, a wonderful kick, a good decision maker. He's got the clean hands that you want to see. I'd say he's a bit like a Rory Sloane, who also come from out there at the Eastern Rangers. Unassuming type of guy, but plays well every time he steps out in the park.
So you've compared him to Joey? You think he plays like Joey?
Well, he reminds me physically of a young Joey.
Basically
young
small.
Joey. Yeah. Small, about the 180.
Well, I had Errol Goulden as a little bit of a comparison here. Teammate of Tyler Sonsie at the Eastern Rangers. Saligo won the best and fairest. Good decision maker. Another one with a high footy IQ. Another natural footballer. So he might only be small, not the biggest unit out there, but knows how to play the game, knows how to find the footy. He's tough. He can tackle. So despite his size, he's a kid that's going to have a crack and compete for you, which is what you want. Has played a game of VFL, played a game for the Tigers and got a bit of footy. So he's had that experience against men, and obviously the Adelaide Crows have liked what they've seen with him, and a player that will move over interstate and hopefully can help the Adelaide Crows on their continued development and rebuild.
So that's the Crows. They picked up Jake Saligo, and you see a trade here as well. So Collingwood's moved up. They've picked up pick 48 in this year's draft. They've given up a future fourth rounder for next year, and the Giants are involved in that as well with the Pies. Pick 37 is next, Joey. That's where you went all the way back in 2001, 20 years ago.
Long time ago.
Long
yeah,
time.
pick 37. And as we talk about some diamonds in the rough, well, there's a history of pick 37. Mark Lacroix, a couple of 200 gamers, Todd Goldstein, Harrison Petty's just won a premiership, taking pick 37 a few years ago. So as we said, there's big hype on the top 20, but you can always find a diamond in the rough.
Such as yourself.
With pick 37, the West Coast Eagles have selected Rhett Bazzo from the Waffle Colts SDFC.
This is an absolute steal for the West Coast Eagles and a sensational pickup. I'm rapt to see him make his way onto an AFL list. He'll learn under Jeremy McGovern. That's the reality of the type of player he is, that intercept marker. Look, he's even going to be able to go forward. So in 12 months' time, when Josh Kennedy moves on, maybe he goes and partners up with Oscar Allen, gives West Coast a bit of freedom to maybe even push Oscar Allen into the ruck and pinch hit there. So he certainly gives them flexibility. They've got themselves an out-and-out star, and mark my words, in a few years' time, AFL people will be wondering why this kid went at pick 37.
Nothing wrong with pick 37, Mick. We'll put that in the time capsule. Based on what you've seen from West Coast so far, this draft, with a winger, a defender and a midfielder, where do you think their list is at?
Well, I think it's at a really interesting point, to be honest. I mean, you've got the ageing stars who we know with the Shannon Hearns and Josh Kennedy's, as we mentioned, Brad Shepherd, probably more on the back end of his career than at the start. So it is at an interesting point, but they've done a fantastic job over the last few years. You think of players like Jake Waterman, Tom Barrass, Tommy Cole, Oscar Allen that I mentioned. These are some players that you can really build your core group around and have another crack at a premiership in the coming years. That's not to say they can't have one last crack at it with the group that they've got. They've brought Tim Kelly in, obviously, over the last couple of years, who's added some real class to that group. They had their injury concerns over the last 12 months, but you can almost pencil in most of the games over here in WA, so I think they're really well positioned for the future.
With pick 38, North Melbourne have selected Miller Bergman from the Dandenong Stingrays.
Not surprised with this boy. I certainly had him as a draftable player. A boy of about the 188, but light. Think of Will Day, the boy at Hawthorn, lightly built, but he's such a great decision maker and user of the footy. He's the boy you want to see with the footy in his hands. That's how good his decision making and execution is. He can play anywhere along the flanks, so whether it's out in the wing, half forward, half back. Those three roles he's played this year, just lacks the weight at the minute at 70 kilos, but that elite kicking is what he brings to the table.
Yeah, another one of those outside sort of talented that we spoke about that maybe the Kangaroos need a little bit more of. We know they're pretty well stacked now in the midfield, particularly in that inside midfield with Horne-Francis. They got Greenwood, we know about Simpkin and Davies-Uniacke, Jed Anderson, and they drafted a couple in Phillips and Powell. So to now get a bit of those flankers that have got some athleticism and some kicking ability and some run, that's probably where they're now starting to fill the needs. They've done really well with their inside mids, the Kangaroos. Now they're starting to fill the peripheries, and on top of getting Coleman Jones, in the trade period with Larkey and a couple of the other tall forward rucks, they're starting to really build a strong list now that they can continue to develop in the next few seasons.
So they've had 3 picks in that second round, and they won't have another one until round 4 when they'll have pick 64.
With pick 39, Melbourne have selected Blake Howes from the Sandringham Dragons.
On a wing, can play forward, but I think he could even potentially develop into an inside mid, one of those tall mids at 190 centimetres. I really like what I've seen of him. He's got that good athleticism. You can see he wins contest. Jack Gunston is a really good description. He's a player that can be a natural forward, but has also got more than that. He can play up the ground and potentially, as we said, go through as an inside mid. I really like this selection for Melbourne, and gee, they've done well here, the D's.
Yeah, the D's with pick 39. So I guess when you win a premiership and you've got a pretty full list of talent, you can just pick and choose exactly who you want and just slot them in and maybe play them a year in the VFL and see how it develops there, Joey.
Yeah, but he was an under-16 All-Australian, so he, all the recruiters have been able to have a good look at him. As we said, that prototype 190 centimetre player that can do it, in the forward half and in the midfield, which is the type of player I really like. The ones that can do it, through that mid-forward region. They are the match winners in the AFL, the way it's being played in the modern times, and this guy fits the bill and a really nice athlete, really nice size.
Mick, what are your thoughts on Blake Howes? He's drifted a little bit, and the D's would be stoked to pick him up, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'm with Joey. I love this kid. I think he's a very, very good player, and I think the D's have absolutely nailed it again. He just looks to have a huge ceiling, and that's what you want in a draftee. You want to know that there's a lot of scope for improvement there, and he certainly has that. Again, some more class on the outside for the D's. They've got those ball winners in Oliver and Viney and Petrarca and the likes on the inside. This kid gives them some class to complement the Salems and the like. Should have gone a lot earlier for mine, so nice pick up by the D's.
I was with Blake Howes at a Hemisphere Sports Management event on Tuesday night, and he was saying he's just happy to go anywhere. And the fact that he's staying in Melbourne, I'd imagine he'd be pretty happy with that. I think he grew up a Saints supporter, Joey.
Oh, it's a shame for the Saints. They've missed out. He's going to a pretty good club. I mean, it might be tough for him to get a game early because they are flying Melbourne and the list that they've got, but he'll get some good grounding and he'll learn off some of the best and try and force his way into the side.
All right, great stuff. Round 2 is done and dusted. Round 3 is not far away. Stay with us on Fox Footy's coverage of the 2021 National Draft.
Every year, I think, Paddy, this will be it. You'll be picked. It's bigger than medals, bigger than money, bigger than premierships. This is why we play. And surely this year, I'll be chosen as a NAB mini legend.
Zach Toohey? How many Brownlows has he won?
Supporting footballers from NAB AFL Auskick to the big time. NAB, more than money.
Success is graded on a curve. That's on your face. Yes, it's Zukis are designed only for the most successful people in Australia.
Tick, boom, me not really care what I'm bumping to. Bulldozer, make room, right that
With Nordic Track, the results you want start here.
Let's go on a journey through Antarctica, through Monument Valley,
through the Balkans,
in Thailand,
in Morocco.
The best treadmills, bikes, ellipticals, rowers, and state-of-the-art strength equipment take you further. Nordic Track connects you to a personal trainer in your home. Nordic Track, the home of interactive personal training.
Here at Amart Furniture, our Black Friday sale is on now. Save up to 50% off a huge range of sofas, living, dining and more. You won't want to miss it. Amart Furniture, limited time only.
Now's the time to head into Repco, because we're bringing the Bathurst with this exclusive Bowden's Own Bathurst 6-pack for only $64.
Are you ready for some quality time in the great outdoors? Four-wheel drive Supercenter has you covered. Scan the QR code on screen for a chance to win this super tough Adventure Kings camper trailer, valued at over $21,000. Simply tell us which campsite you'd visit first in your Kings camper trailer, and you'll go straight into the draw to win this ultimate prize. Scan the QR code on screen to enter, or visit campertrailerkingscomp.com.au.
There are 6 people sewn together into the
ragdoll? Ragdoll it is.
What is that? You're on his kill list.
Yes.
Ragdoll. New episode every Saturday.
Now the race is on then, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't want to give up his opportunity to win an 8th world title and become the greatest of all time. He's trying to take the lead from Verstappen. What a drive. This has been game on, back at the top.
You're watching Fox Footy's draft coverage. How good is that? That's Johnson and Goda and Butler coming up next as well, which is an amazing scene given that his brother was with him. Sonsie, McDonald, Roberts, they're all there. He's going to the Sydney Swans, and it's an unbelievable night for so many boys. Their lives are being made.
Absolutely. It's the best night of their lives up until this point in time. They're living out their boyhood dreams. They get to go to AFL clubs, and there's still a lot of nervous boys at the moment sitting at home just praying and hoping that their name's going to get called out in these last couple of rounds. But it is one of the great moments for not only the players but also their family and friends who have been on the journey with them, taking them to local games of footy and everything else. So it's been great.
Shifter, the Sydney Swans are on the clock. We can see him there. Charlie Gardner's out the back, the head of footy. I'd imagine they'd be deep in conversations about who they pick with pick number 40. We saw Melbourne Footy Club before the break select Blake Howes with the last selection of the second round. You thought that was a bit of a surprise that he drifted that far. The Sydney Swans are up next. They've got 4 minutes to go. We thought they might look for some more midfielders, Joey.
Yeah, we did. And again, the Swans are a club that have had some success with some of these later picks. Tom McCartan was a pick 33. Chad Warner was a pick 39 a few years ago. Justin McInerney, who's become a really good player for the Swans, was pick 44. And even Jordan Dawson at pick 56. So Kinnear Beatson and his team have had some success in recent years. Rowbottom and Hayward are post pick 20 as well. So they've got some success. And just a couple of interesting notes that we've noted so far, Tom, with this draft. It seems to be a real homegrown draft. So you mentioned the Western Australian clubs. Yep. So out of the 6 picks for the 2 Western Australian sides, 5 of them have been homegrown. But also with the Victorian clubs, 80% of the players drafted to Victorian clubs have been from Victoria. So you just wonder whether the COVID world we're living in is maybe playing a factor, whether it means they don't necessarily go and see as much interstate football, or whether they want to draft players from their home state because of all the travel restrictions and everything else.
Pretty good comment, I think. They haven't seen them live. Yeah, they haven't been on a plane to go and make an assessment of the WA boys or the SA boys as much as they would normally do it. And so that leads you to, you see what you believe.
What you know.
Yeah, exactly, right in front of your nose.
I just wonder whether clubs are more scared of the go-home factor than ever before. More players are looking to leave not before their contracts are finished, but maybe after 2 years or after 3 years, and then free agency as well has increased player movement. It might spook them a bit. No matter how good your environment is, you still might lose players because they want to go home for family reasons. We've seen it so many times in recent years.
Well, we've seen it with Jordan Dawson, haven't we? You know, Sydney Swans developed him, took him at pick 56, developed him into an almost all-Australian calibre player, and then for reasons that are fair, wanted to go home, but it does put the club out.
Do that at your peril, as I say. Adam Goods, you wouldn't have got at Sydney. You would have got Mickey O'Loughlin. You wouldn't have got Matthew Pavlik over there at Fremantle. Back your club, and it's culture to keep that great player.
Yeah.
That he'll end up loving the club. He'll be a leader and a captain of your footy club, and he won't go home. It needs to be approached if you think he's far better than the other pick.
And this is the other surprise, I think, of the night. As we said earlier, we thought there would be a lot of live trades, a lot of swapping of picks, that everyone would have a different board of who they wanted to take, but we haven't seen as much of that as we thought. And again, maybe that unpredictability has meant that clubs are a bit reluctant to slide down the draft order. They're not quite sure, so they're just sticking with what they know and what their board says and just trusting themselves.
All right, so there's been a trade of picks. We see that there. Port Adelaide get pick 55 in, and Carlton get a future fourth rounder again. That's just Port's way of getting up and maybe even getting a player they have on their whiteboard this year, Joey.
Well, that's right. They've certainly maybe got their eye on someone that they think can get through to 55, so they want to get in this year, prepared to sacrifice a fourth round pick next year, and maybe vice versa. Carlton maybe have got their board and think that anyone that they really had their eye on, or they weren't going to take any more picks, I didn't think anyway, did they? There was always talk that Carlton were just going to have the one pick to get the small forward, so they don't need pick 55, so Port Adelaide have taken advantage.
And Port would be pretty happy at the minute. Jace Burgoyne hasn't been a bid for him. They're to get him pretty cheap, so they won't need as much to get him, and they are committed to taking him with their last pick tonight if there's no bid on him. So I think they'd be pretty pleased. I think that boy's got some real class in what I'd seen of him this year in a couple of those national games. A really smooth mover. He's got the Burgoyne ability to just break the lines with speed. He's got great vision as well. He started back behind the ball as a half-back, could play wing. On the outside, he's got a light body, but his dad, of course, was a champion player in the Indigenous Team of the Century. Shawnee's brother, of course, one of the great champions of the game at Port Adelaide and at Hawthorn, but Pete was a great player.
With pick 40, the Sydney Swans have selected Corey Warner from East Fremantle.
Shifter, you called this earlier and it's happened.
Love this, love it.
Joins the brother. There's one happy boy in Corey over there in WA. A dream has come true at an unbelievable level. He wanted to make the AFL, but geez, if I could really have what I wanted, I love to play with my brother.
I reckon his parents are pretty happy too. You would think, having both boys now playing for the same club. I love seeing this, and I think, again, the clubs don't take a player because they have a brother there. No doubt they've seen traits they like with Corey, and certainly he is one of those ones, isn't he, Shifter, that's that athlete. He's a natural runner that can play on the wing. Bit different to his brother. He's not playing so much in and, a burst like Chaddy, so he's shown some good signs, but certainly that outside running type. Think of like an Ed Langdon that could just run all day on the wing.
Mick Ablett, you've seen a bit of Corey over there in the West. What's your take on this selection?
Yeah, certainly have, and like Joey mentioned, he is quite different to his brother up there at Sydney. And Tommy, you touched on it. That's one way to keep him, isn't it? With the brother up as well. But look, I spoke to Glenn Jakovich about this kid 12 months ago because he's from a similar region, and he saw him play, and he said, Chad Warner's been great, but there's another one that's better, and he's on his way, which is a big call considering what he's been able to do in Sydney. But I find his acceleration is his feature. His speed, and he tested that way, sub 3 seconds in a 20-metre sprint. He's got a great endurance base too. He was only a 6-minute, 20-second 2K time trialer, so he's got that really, really athletic profile that gives him some speed and the ability to maintain that top speed. So this is a really good pick by Sydney, and a kid that's going to really give him some outside polish and class. And as we say, he's certainly going to fit in very, very nicely in Sydney alongside his brother.
And we love that, don't we, Joey? A couple of brothers playing alongside each other, hopefully next year.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've had a few. The Kernos are at Carlton, and there's a few brothers playing together. But no, it's a good get by the Swans. And as we said, played a few Waffle League games for East Freo at the end of the season. And he's running as his greatest strength, and he'll fit in. Yeah, the Swans, they've taken a couple of those inside mids or those bigger bodied, and now they've complemented that with a bit of outside run.
He's the running man. He's the Andrew Gaff of this draft, I think. Just an elite outside
big
runner.
Call, the Andrew Gaff of the draft.
Yeah,
40's a steal.
And Chad, of course, remember, rising star early last year, had some injuries, but gee, he's going to be a real player as an inside.
And about the pick himself, wasn't he? Chad Warner was about a pick, late 30s, wasn't he, as well?
Yep.
All right.
Getting some character there.
We've got the Brisbane Lions for the first time tonight. They don't have many list spots, the Lions. I'm interested to see what Dom Ambrosio does here, the list manager.
With pick 41, the Brisbane Lions have selected James Tunstall from East Perth.
Bit of a bolter here, Shifter. What do you make of this selection for the Lions?
Another boy from Bustleton. Yeah, Bunbury boy from the grammar school there. Look, love the way he wins the footy. A bit of Adam Chera about him if you're trying to picture the way he plays. 50% contested footy, wins it, gets the ball on the outside as well. Neat skills, clean hands, all the basics are covered. Just playing it pretty much at Colts level, but he showed his ability to in the rep side playing for WA against SA this year. A kid of about 187, still to grow into his body. He's only the 76 kilos, but 187, 6'2", is a lovely size to be a prototype AFL player. A kid from East Perth.
And travelled from Bustleton to Perth to play his football. So that's 2.5 hours one way. Yeah, 5-hour round trip to play a game of football. So a bit like Jay Amos, the commitment and the hours and the travel they've had to do, it holds him in good stead, and I'm sure that he'll be comfortable moving interstate.
You'd be cramping up on the bus home, wouldn't you, Joe? You can imagine that. A couple of beers on the way, maybe, if you're 18. Of course. Mick, tell us about this fella.
Yeah, Joey's spot on. The Southwest's on fire down here in WA at the moment with Amos and Tunstall. Brady Hoff being like another Southwest product. So it's been a fantastic night. Look, I love him because he gets looks at goal. As a midfielder, you want those guys that can actually get forward to centre and actually get shots on goal, and he's certainly one of them. And he likes to keep the game going forward. Very, very rarely will he come out of a contest, or whether he's inside or outside, does he look backwards. He likes to get the footy moving forward, likes to get it inside 50 and give his teammates an opportunity. So it's a really nice pickup. Maybe a bit of a surprise that he's gone this early in the draft, but full credit to James and the East Perth Footy Club. Ex-West Coast Eagle player Dean Turner, now the CEO down there, clearly getting some good talent out of that neck of the woods.
Thank you, Mick. We'll check back in with you in just a few moments' time. I want to talk to you about the WA talent and how strong it is this year, maybe compared to previous years. But as we speak, there's a pick that's come from the Dogs for Josh Fahey, who's in the GWS Academy. Shifter, tell us about that.
I'm amazed it's taken so long.
Absolutely.
I thought it'd come mid-20s, this boy. Won the medal for the best player for Australia, just ahead of Nick Dacos, by the way, for that game against Geelong. So he had a fantastic game, a left-footer, powerful left-footer from half-back. I liken him to Daniel Rich, the All-Australian half-back that had his best year with that elite kicking. So he becomes a 60-metre, 70-metre player with his run, his lovely step-through as well.
He's got all of Canberra in the one room.
That's a big function for one young man. Look at that. Give us a wave if they can hear us.
All of Queanbeyan in the one room. Unbelievable. Wait and see what happens here. The Giants, the Dogs. The Dogs clearly rate him highly, Joey. And, you know, if the Giants say no, then the Dogs will take him. So that's what this is all about, I guess.
It is, but we're pretty confident the Giants will swoop and take him. And as Shifter said, he's got that bit of dash off halfback. We've seen him play VFL football. He played when there was the VFL early in the season. He was able to play some games for the GWS Giants. And another one who's just going to complement that bit of run and dash that they've taken in recent years. You think of Lockie Ash, who's in that side. They've got Kelly and Whitfield. So we know they've got those big balls in the midfield with Hopper and Taranto and Tom Green. But now they've got that dash if they take him on the outside halfback wing.
And they've matched, so it looks like he'll be playing for the GWS Giants next year, which is a huge get for them, given how highly he's rated, Shifter. And you've spoken about it before. You're surprised he's lasted this long at all. Well,
we talk about the great attributes. We call it the weapon, don't we, these days? This kid's got a very distinctive weapon with that left foot. It's penetrating, short and long. His vision's excellent, and no surprise there. I'm just surprised that it's so late.
With pick 42, the GWS Giants have matched the Western Bulldogs bid for Joshua Fahey from the Queanbeyan Tigers.
There you go, Joey. Can you tell us, there's great scenes here. The entire Canberra City is in the one room and they're celebrating because they know he's going to be a GWS Giants player now. We'll talk to him in just a few moments' time, but we're going to see some highlights as well. And he's a pretty exciting player.
Yeah, he is. As I said, played at senior level already. And I think a little bit of what Hayden Young, you think about what Fremantle Dockers were able to get. He's sort of got that look there, the hair, the long blonde locks, and that the beautiful left foot kick, which, as Shifter said, stands out. You can see him here. He's got that ability to hit the short one. He can also kick it long with penetration, the run and dash off half back. And as I said, I think the GWS Giants, they're a really intriguing side next season. They've got a really strong list. We know about their inside midfield depth, and they've got that quality on the outside, and he's just another one that can add to that. So, really like what the Giants have done.
You like it as well, Shifter?
Oh, very much so. Going to be a very, very good player at the AFL level.
Let's chat to him. Josh Fahey, congratulations. You must be stoked. Give us an insight into what the scenes are like there in Canberra.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Got a great support network down here. Queanbeyan Tigers, they've been here my whole career. They've done so much for me. Same with Giants Academy. Everyone, I can't individually name people because I know I'll miss some, but they know who they are, and I'd like to get around to them individually over the next day or two to thank them all personally for getting me here.
Who's organised the function for you, Josh? Has that been the footy club or your mum and dad? Who's teed up the big support there tonight?
My auntie has actually, because my parents are stuck on the Gold Coast due to border restrictions. Yeah, so that was devastating if they couldn't get down here. But yeah, my auntie's taken over that, and Adrian Pavesi, the general manager at my local club.
And you'll be pretty comfortable, mate, going to the GWS Giants. Obviously, being part of the academy, being there for a while, it'd be nice to officially be a Giants player and look to play some senior games.
Yeah, exactly. I've been up there 3 or 4 times in training. I've had great networks there. I spoke to Leon, Adrian, Cam Bernasconi regularly, and I just feel at home there, and I can't wait to get started.
Oh, it's great to see, Josh. You're clearly very excited, as you should be. Looking forward to seeing what you can produce for the Giants, and give all your mates and family there a wave, because I think they deserve as much credit as you do.
Yeah, they would do. Thank you very much.
Thanks. That's Josh Fahey from Canberra. He's gone to the Giants, and the Dogs bid for him, and the Giants said, no, we'll take him with that pick. So it's still the Dogs. They've got 2.5 minutes left. There they are, and they're pretty stoked. Big night in Canberra tonight, Joey.
Yeah, so it should be. They'll have a good night. Not sure how late everything stays out. Now, open in Canberra, but I'm sure they'll head out and have a good night, so they should.
With pick 43, the Western Bulldogs have selected Arthur Jones from Claremont.
Sometimes you only need an opportunity. Arthur Jones got a call up late to play in a curtain raiser grand final day for WA. Lots of changes. They still had underage finals over in WA. The East Fremantle boys had to pull out. In come Arthur Jones. I hadn't heard of the boy. He made a statement. Played on the wing, dash. He kicked 2 goals, 16 possessions. You dig a bit deeper, he's from Mount Barker. He's part of the Cracker clan. You can see that. Then we watched him test at the end of the year. I loved him. He was up against Warner in the 2K. He took him on. The Indigenous boy ran up next to him and said, I'm taking you on. They fought for about 4 laps. So I loved his ability in that game, the way he competed, and you find out a bit about the background. And he's only a lightly built boy, 65 kilos at the minute, but he had some special stuff and he's got some spunk about him as well. So I love those little glimpses of young Arthur Jones. What a reward for him.
Some excitement, bit of run and carry, quick, some speed.
Mick Ablett, I'm trying to remember the last Arthur that got drafted. He must be very excited, and he wasn't even ranked in our top 100, so it is a bolter. Tell us about him.
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. It's funny, when I was having a look at him, I thought the same thing. I thought, geez, when was the last Arthur that came through? So, yeah, look, he's exciting. Think Tyler Brockman. We saw Tyler burst onto the scene, the Indigenous Hawthorn product from WA last year, and that's what he reminds me of, that speed endurance which has been touched on. He's from Mount Barker, so he's another country player out of WA, which just highlights the importance of looking after these regions and giving these kids opportunity. Mount Barker, you pass her on your way down to Albany, a lovely part of WA and an area that's produced a lot of AFL talent. This kid's no different. He's just someone that can really light up a game, and when you've got the brains in the room of Sam Power and Dom Malesi and these guys that have really done their homework, the Dogs have certainly got an outstanding player that's another threat up forward for an already imposing team.
Mickey, are you able to give us an insight into the talent in WA this year compared to previous years? It seems like every second player is getting picked up from somewhere in the state.
Yeah, well, this group a couple of years ago nearly took out the NAB AFL Under-16 championships up there on the Gold Coast, so they were always a a talented group of players. But as I just mentioned, there is so much depth in the country, boys, and it's something that I've harped on about for a long time. I know the West Coast Eagles are starting to invest regionally in some areas around the state as they recognise the importance, and just chatting before with Justin Longmuir about the same sort of thing, and he certainly values the regional parts of WA as well. We've got to find a way in the vast expanses of getting these kids opportunity, because they're the ones that are raw, they're the ones that have got a really high ceiling, and that's taking nothing away from the Metro kids. But geez, it's exciting times for WA football, and I'm not surprised to see this group feature heavily in this draft.
Mick, I've got an answer from Max Lawton from the Fox Footy website. He tells me the last Arthur to debut was Arthur Chilcott for Sydney in 1984. So there you have it, the first Arthur in quite some time, and congratulations to him and also the Western Bulldogs. Up next is the Adelaide Crows. Joey, what sort of player are they looking for?
Well, the one player that I've just, having looked through the notes, shifted it's still on the board, is young Zach Taylor, who we all rated pretty highly. A really talented inside sort of mid-forward that's got evasive skills and a beautiful elite kick. Think of like Jade Gresham. He's that evasive dancer, only 180 centimetres and about 80 kilos. So I'm surprised he's on the board, a Calder Cannons boy. We know the Adelaide Crows actually have a fair bit of history drafting Calder Cannons players in the past. So I wonder whether they're looking at someone like him or they have someone else in mind. We can see them working the phone still. So as we get to this part of the draft, all these things come into consideration, a needs basis. Do you take the best talent? Do you look at trading in and out and those sorts of things? But yeah, Zach Taylor's probably the one for me that's still a surprise to be on the board.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, Joey. Best and fairest winner at the Cannons too, and he's got what you want in terms of the two main things: getting the footy and using it well. He's a great. Here we go. The decision's made.
With pick 44, the Adelaide Crows have selected Zach Taylor from the Calder Cannons.
He's a bit like Tukey Miller. He's around the footy the whole time. He come from the Calder Cannons. What a year he had as an All-Australian. A star he is now of the game. And Zach's got that passion to play. Love the way he goes. He's got energy. He's got effervescence out there when he plays. He's got some zest about him. Has an impact all of the time.
Yeah, he's clever. He's a good little player. I really like him. I know he's only small, but we've seen some small players have a real big impact at AFL level. And I would have thought for the Adelaide Crows this was purely just the best player on the board shifted, wouldn't it? They just would have looked at their board and said, we've got Zach Taylor rated, somewhere in the 20s. He's still available at 44. Yeah. Best available. Just take the player, and they've got themselves there a little star.
I've just got a text message from a recruiter at another club saying that might be the steal of the draft for the Crows. They really rated him, and clearly the Crows would be happy to take him at pick 44. And they want midfielders as well, Joey, as you've said in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can never have enough midfielders that we've spoken about. You look there at his profile. That's pretty good numbers for the NAB League. I mean, nearly 6 clearances a game. So he wins it on the inside. He can win it on the outside. High numbers. Hits the scoreboard as well. As we said, really evasive, really clever player. Yeah, I think he's going to be a little star.
Let's chat to him. Zach Taylor, welcome to Fox Footy's coverage. You've got a lot of mates there, like everyone else who's been drafted tonight. You're now an Adelaide Crows player. How does that sit with you? I don't think your internet's absolutely perfect at the moment. We might get back to you, we might not, but congratulations regardless. The Collingwood Footy Club is up next. We haven't seen the Pies in a while. Joey, where have the Pies been tonight? In fact, we haven't seen them at all tonight.
No, well, we knew that coming into the draft, that once they got Nick Dacos, they were going to lose most of their picks, but they've been able to get back in, and obviously there's a player that they really like.
So the pick is in.
With pick 45, Collingwood have selected Arlo Draper from South Adelaide.
Well, there's the moment. I'm not surprised. First impressions are great on players, I reckon. I love those. I hold them in my head. Jason Horne-Francis, the best player for SA at under-16 level a couple of years ago. The second best was this kid in this game, playing at half-back over there in WA, then was injured for the other couple of under-16 matches. He stepped up to play senior footy at South Adelaide. One of 3 now from South Adelaide that played senior footy. Touch of class I like about him, and versatility. He's got, a bit of Connor Rosie about him with that step. Even Jakey Stringer does some unbelievable things at times. You don't know how high that ceiling can be, whether it can be that mercurial half forward or whether he'll be a terrific running half back. Look, I had him in 25. I can't believe he's still here at this point, but that's the way the clubs analyse it.
Yeah, great get by Collingwood to get themselves back into the draft, but also we saw some phantom drafts had him in the first round, so Collingwood would be over the moon to get Arlo Draper at pick 45.
All right, Arlo, so we've had Matt Roberts, who's from South Adelaide. We've had Jason Horne-Francis last night, and now you're going to Collingwood. How do you feel about that?
Oh my God, I've almost got no words right now. That's incredible. Yeah, I can't believe it. I'm extremely grateful to Collingwood, and I can't wait to get started. Wow.
Congratulations, Arlo. You've probably waited maybe a bit longer than you thought. How have you been? Have you been like just sitting there so nervous? Have you been calm? How's the environment been up until this moment?
Oh, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was a bit nervous. Yeah, I didn't have too much expectation coming into it, but obviously sitting here waiting's been a little bit nerve-wracking. But yeah, it's insane that Collingwood have taken me, and I'm really excited to get started.
So we know that you stopped playing footy for a couple of years when you were young. What brought you back to the game?
Probably this man behind me, Angus, getting here. Angus Bradley was playing local footy at Wollonga. He wanted me to come back, so I decided, you know what, come back, kick the footy around with him, and yeah, that's kind of what happened. Yeah.
Tell us who you got with you tonight. How are you celebrating, and who's in the room at the moment? They must be so proud.
Yeah, so I got mum and dad, my two brothers, Manny and Sid, girlfriend Layla, Angus, friend. So yeah, it's a pretty small group, but celebrations will be on from now on.
And you happy to move to Victoria, mate?
Yeah, completely happy, stoked. Yeah, had my head wrapped around moving into state for a while, so yeah, really excited.
Arlo, awesome stuff. Look forward to having you in Victoria. Look forward to seeing what you can do for Collingwood in the future years as they rebuild under Craig McRae. Well done.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I don't get sick of that at all. That's awesome. Every single one, they're stoked. Their family's so happy. They mob them up, hoping no one gets injured when they get stacked on. But it is great. Mick Ablett, you've been watching this young fella play as well. Give us an insight into what sort of footballer he's going to be at the top level.
Yeah, really good one, I think, Tom. Like Shifter, really surprised that he was still on the board at this period of the draft. It's funny when you see a player sometimes and you just see him slotting in a certain role. I really like him across half-back. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Ridley. You look at just his composure. He does not panic with the ball in hand, weights his kicks really nicely, and he's willing to absorb contact. He's one of those players that can take contact, stand up, free the arms and still release the footy. So it's a really important aspect of today's footy that you can actually still dispose of it post-contact and gain some yards for your team. I mean, he's going to give him versatility everywhere. With the highlights we're seeing at the moment is him up forward, but he's got those long arms, he's got that nice lean build, and like I say, that beautiful fluent technique where he's able to weight kicks and hit targets anywhere around the ground. So really impressive, and I think the Magpies fans will be licking their lips.
Yeah, maybe that's why he slid, because he is versatile, but he's played a bit of everywhere, but hasn't really cemented himself in any one spot. So it'd be interesting to see where Collingwood think he's best suited, because, as Mick said there, he could be an excellent interceptor at half-back. We've seen that he's got the ability to play forward, and we know he can go and play in the stoppages, burst out. He's got good balance and a good decision-maker. So he's one that's got some real upside, and if Collingwood can sort of embed him in one position, there might be some huge growth there. And again, that might be one that we look back in a few years' time and think that was an absolute steal at 45.
They've been rebuilding for 12 months, Collingwood. I think they had 9 or 10 debutants last year. They've got Nick Dacos in the door as well. So they're building something pretty special, I reckon. It might be a couple of years away, but if you're going to be a young player going to a club where you want to get games, get a good grounding, Collingwood's probably the club at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful club and a brand new coach and a whole new environment and vibe down there. So to get some youth into that place will continue to spark the place.
With pick 46, Essendon have selected Alistair Lord from Norwood.
Well, it'd be a name we're familiar with if you're an old Geelong supporter. He's a Brownlow medalist in 1982, Alistair Lord. No relation, this boy. So I was following the name, but then he'd been injured, then he bobbed up at a state game and was a star straight away. Playing as a small back that just read the play beautifully, runs and links up very, very well. Was super at this combine too with his agility. Was in the best couple of kids in the country. But that rebound ability and that dash, a bit of Adam Sard about him. So another another one of those break-the-line defenders that can find the footy on the way out as well as intercepting. He's a kid from Norwood Footy Club. He's at private school at Ross Trevor and been a star when you read about him, but it was only a couple of games that I saw him in that at the end of the year playing for SA that really caught my eye.
And he'll join Ben Hobbs as well at Essendon Footy Club, who, again, have probably not rebuilt, but they've just topped up where they needed to top up over the last couple of years,
Yeah,
Joey.
and Essendon were linked to Josh Sin with that sort of speed and agility out of the back half, so maybe they weren't able to get Sin because they got Hobbs instead, and maybe Lord was the next one in line that can play that, got that, as Shifter said really well, that Adam Saad agility, uses it well, run and carry, and can break the lines off half-back.
Mick, tell us about Alistair Lord.
Yeah, really like this pick, boys. He's we saw the plays like on the screen. Brad Hill, you mentioned Adam Saad. How many times have we seen Brad Hill start the counter-attack from the defensive side of centre? That's exactly what Alistair Lord does. He's the one that sets up the counter-attack. He's generally the first player involved and a really important part of your forward thrust and your next attacking opportunity. So I really like his lateral movement, as Shifter touch on. To run sub 8 seconds for your agility is absolutely elite. So good pickup for the Bombers and a nice replacement. Not just the loss of Adam Saad. We saw Nick Hines step up into that role, but you got to remember they also lost Connor McKenna. So addressing some needs, and they've certainly got that with Alistair Lord.
So Geelong's up next, Joey and Shifter. What sort of names are on the board, Shifter, that you're surprised that have slipped to pick 47? Sorry to catch you on the hop, but...
Trying to find if there's any Geelong Falcons boys still on the board, because they've already taken a couple of Geelong Falcons tonight.
Like a kid called Cooper White from down there, a midfielder, lefty. Yeah. He's got a bit of flair, a little bit of toughness about him if you're looking for the qualities, and probably saw the Falcons 3 or 4 times this year. He'd be one. We've mentioned, well, there's the tall boy from the Northern Knights too called Ned Long. He's a 196 midfielder. Think Paddy Cripps with him in terms of his stoppage work, and then when he rests up forward, he can mark the ball as well. But a small sample, got injured, so we just seen 2 or 3 games from him. Okay.
So only 3 players so far have been drafted at 197 centimetres or above. Is that a surprise for you, Joey, or is that sort of the trend over the last few years where ruckmen have been left till late or very early?
Yeah, I think it was... There weren't many rucks in this draft pool, were there? We know Conway was the standout, and then there weren't many. But there hasn't been the amount of talls, and I'm surprised too the amount of mature age. We've only had the 1 mature age selection so far. That was probably Lek Alir in the first round, but there hasn't been too many. But it looks like that there's going to be a bid on Windhager, the other St Kilda Academy player, and you think for giving up pick 57, it should be a no-brainer for St Kilda to match that bid.
This is what they're here for, aren't they, the Saints? In sort of the 3rd and 4th round, they're expecting bids on their NGAs, and they'll probably match all of them.
Well, Windhager, he played a private school game under COVID. No one could get him to look, and there was no vision. But Matty Lloyd was the coach, and just having a chat to him in recent times, had 34 and took 14 marks. You'd love to have been the fly on the wall for that game. That was the game we're looking to see. The breakout game for this boy was wonderful attributes. He's had an ACL in his development, elite basketballer, and we could see bits and pieces of it, and that maybe was the game that we've all missed.
With pick 47, St Kilda have matched the Geelong Cats bid for Marcus Windhager from the Sandringham Dragons.
Well, I'm not sure if it was the same school game, Shifter, but my note said the game for Haileybury against Geelong College, he kicked 5 and had 25 touches. So whether that was a same game or another game, but this is another player, another basketball background who's hardly played footy in 3 years. Another one who's had a lot of injuries, an ACL injury, a back injury, but he's one that's got some real upside, isn't he, Shifter? A really good size, and another one of those powerful players that I think the Saints need.
So they've done very, very well there. They've invested in their next generation academy, and we're able to match the bid here without it coming within 20 when they would have been able to do it.
So just a bit of news from earlier on. Adelaide and Melbourne were trying to orchestrate a trade, and the AFL knocked that trade back because it was with picks that they traded during the trade period just gone. So that was the reason the league said no to the Crows and Melbourne, and the draft continued as it did. So Geelong Footy Club now have got 4 minutes on the clock. The Cats are an interesting club, aren't they, Joey? They might have 1 more year left in them. We thought that last year. They made a prelim final. What are they looking to do with these remaining pick or two they've got in the draft?
Oh, they just need to continue to stock up. We know that they're chasing that flag. They've been chasing it for a number of years. They're a wonderful club, and now they are going to get a number of picks to build the next wave of talent when these Hall of Fame players that they've had at their club for so long move on. What type of player? We're not sure. We see there they took the ruck. They wanted the ruckman. He was always linked to the Cats, and then they've taken a couple of sort of tall midfielders in the next couple of picks. So it'll be interesting to see where they go.
There's a mature ager, Greg Clark, of course, there from Subi, who won the Simpson Medal, best on the ground in the grand final. There's a boy who was in the academy probably, it'd be half a dozen years ago.
2015.
Amongst the best boys in Australia, and he's developed now, and he's about 100 games he's played.
With pick 48, the Geelong Cats have selected Flynn Kroger from the Eastern Rangers.
Well, I was lucky enough to see him in a game. I mentioned the game at Frankston in the tough conditions where Colin McDonald played very well. Well, this boy was just playing about his second or third game. He'd been injured. He was initially considered for the Vic Metro squad, but missed the first 6 or 8 games of the year. He's the right type. He's a powerful beast. He played down back. He runs straight and hard. And it's from a small sample, but I love what I saw, and I was concentrating because you're doing some commentary on them. Otherwise, you mightn't have noticed that this boy had slipped under the radar, but he had a terrific couple of weeks in a row, but then COVID strikes and doesn't finish the year off. So, yeah, a great selection just on the one sample that I've seen that game in tough conditions.
Interesting that Andrew Mackey's sitting there next to Stephen Wells, probably the future and probably the president at the moment, Stephen Wells, redefining his role in that list management department. Andrew Mackey played a pivotal role in the trade period, and just interesting how these list bosses orchestrate this transition.
With pick 49, Collingwood have selected Cooper Murley from Norwood.
Another South Australian product shifter.
And again, an All-Australian back at the 16s. It's the point of reference for many of these boys because of the fact that different things have occurred in their 17th and 18th year. We just didn't get to see him again through injury. He's Zach Butters like. He's a best and fairest winner in his bottom age year at his club there, of course, at Norwood. And that's an aside, was right up there in the finals, and so he showed all that class in his 16th, 17th year, and then it went pear-shaped this year for him. Come back fit at the end of the year. He tested very, very well, and he's been rewarded. He's got the speed, the smarts, only small at 178, but great natural playing talent.
Yeah, he's quite exciting. As you said, he only played, I think, the 3 games in 2021 because of injury, but in 2 of those he had 30 touches and kicked 2 goals. So he's got high upside. As you said, an All-Australian under 16, so we know he's had that talent. No one with injury. There's been so many of these kids that have had a lot of injury in their junior year, but came second in the Sandford under-18 comp as a bottom age of the year before, Shifter said. So another one that's on the smallish side, but certainly got a lot of talent and potential.
Mick, you've had your eye on Cooper. What are your thoughts on this selection?
Yeah, he's only lightly framed, isn't he? He's only a small type of player and one that clearly they're going to have to invest in for a few years. But it's through opportunities that, and I know Shifter won't take any credit for this, but that Shifter and Grant Williams have created in terms of getting these games up, these state games in really tough times. And you speak to somebody like Brenton Phillips, the state talent manager in SA, and he just was very, very grateful for the opportunity that these kids were given. And, guys like Cooper, they just needed that chance, and he certainly got it. So look forward to watching what Collingwood can do with him and where he may unfold as a player as well.
Mick, are we likely to see any more WA boys selected tonight? Who's left that potentially could get a go that you think deserves an opportunity, or even the rookie draft tomorrow?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing, Judd McVee's a young fella from up Geraldton Way. Harry Taylor's had a lot to do with him, who was an All-Australian as well at under 16 level 2 years ago. I'd be amazed if that young fella doesn't get an opportunity, because he was another one along with Bazzo that I had touted as a top 10 pick 2 years ago. He reminded me a lot of Stephen Hill, an elite talent. Then, Tommy, you start to get to the boys. Like, at what stage does the mature age talent come in? You've got Greg Clark at Subiaco that captained Subi to a premiership this year, was best on ground in that game. An outstanding young man that missed his chance 5 or 6 years ago and has just reinvented himself as a really tough inside mid at 190 plus. Bailey Rogers, another one that had an outstanding year at Waffle level over here. So I'll be interested to see when those mature age players start to kick in, but I'm sure there's still some WA talent on the board, and look forward to hearing another couple of names called out.
All over it as usual, Mick. Let's talk about some of that mature age talent. Charlie Dean was the best young player in the VFL this year, Shifter, and the last 14 years, the best young player in the VFL has been drafted. You know, Bailey Fritsch, Luke Ryan, Jake Riccardi, Kane Lambert, to name a few. He's a good young player, can play back and forward. You know, what do you think his prospects are of getting picked up either tonight or maybe in the rookie draft tomorrow?
In one of those spots of certainty, I think. So it may be tomorrow. I hope it's not. He's like Luke Ryan, very much like... He's a spectacular mark, this boy. Reads the angles. He's developed into a terrific 20-year-old too, physically. Very impressed by the way he worked out at the end of the year. And that award, well, it's the Fothergill Round and Mitchell medal. Boys that have won both Liston trophies and Brownlow medals, it's named after, for the most promising player. He is a promising player, and we hope he gets the chance he deserves.
So St Kilda's got pick 51 from Melbourne. Melbourne's got that future fourth round. There's a lot of future fourth rounders flying around, Joey.
Yeah,
to be honest,
palm them off willy-nilly.
I mean, they just fly around like jelly beans, don't they?
Yeah.
And next year they'll probably pass them on. Again, it makes me think that Melbourne probably doesn't have anyone on their mind they want to pick up this year.
And again, St Kilda have been able to get their 2 academy picks, but they must have someone else on the board that they really like in the next pick after Essendon.
With pick 50, Essendon have selected Garrett McDonough from Richmond.
Do we know who that is, Shifter?
Well, he'd be a VFL player. There's no doubt about that. A Richmond player. They've played about 9 or 10 games in the VFL this year, and enough for them to have scouted him pretty well. And that's a beauty that those sorts of players get the opportunity. They're picking off one from a rival VFL team. There's no love lost between the Bombers and Richmond.
Yeah, well, hopefully now that we've had a mature age, we might get a couple more coming through now that we get to sort of post-pick 50. But yeah, Essendon there taking one.
I always do like it when clubs select players who potentially aren't even on the front of the draft board, and they go around the back door. Adrian Dodoro is a crafty list manager, and he's found one there from Richmond in the VFL. What about father-son, Shifter? Have we got many father-sons left that are looking to be picked up?
Well, the name Woe Woden, of course, is still there, but they'll get him with their last pick. He'll end up, if there's no bid, he ends up a Melbourne player. He'd be pretty happy with that outcome.
What sort of player is he, Shifter? Woden?
Well, again, he was the second quickest that was tested. It shocked everyone with the speed. You don't see it that much in the game. He's a neat mover, a great user of the footy. He has got the cleanest hands in the business, I noticed in reading about him. Worked with Dad over summer just to make sure he never fumbled the ball. That stood out. Played at East Fremantle in a leadership role as well. Played well in the state games. He certainly deserved the opportunity to get his place as a father-son.
Here are the Saints.
With pick 51, St Kilda have selected Oscar Adams from Glenelg Football Club.
A key defender.
And a boy from Mount Gambier. I like his prospects. Think Mark Blitzars from Geelong. He's a boy that can play centre-half back, but he's a big fella, a wiry fella at 197 that can help out in the ruck. It was the last game of those national games between SA and W. He's their best player. And I thought I could see it unfolding in front of my eyes, the way he started to intercept Mark. Not just a big kid that moved well, he actually started to pluck it. And I thought, yeah, I think he can make at least the rookie level. He has made it onto a primary list. That's great news for him. He's worked so hard from Mount Gambier right there on the border to get across and pursue his footy at Glenelg, and a great result for him.
Do you like this selection, Joey?
Well, it's a needs-based, isn't it? They needed a key defender, a developing key defender. They can hopefully turn into a star to work alongside Dougal Howard. He did start the year as a ruck, and then he became a key defender. So that good size, really athletic kid as well for his height. So hopefully they can try and develop him, and he can be that missing link that they have in that defence.
Mick, tell us about Oscar Adams.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, boys, that he falls to St Kilda. I had in my notes that he reminded me a lot of Joey's former teammate in Justin Kazitsky. His versatility and ability to go up and pinch it in the ruck, as it's been touched on, and then just to float across half-back. He's one of those that makes the game look really easy, and it will be interesting to see where he plays, where the Saints think he fits. I mean, up on the board comes also that he plays like Ben McAvoy. So I think for St Kilda fans, you're starting to get a picture of what you're getting. It's just a matter of what role he slots into. So it's a nice problem for the Saints to have, and a nice replacement for their tall stocks.
how much of the draft selections at this time of the draft, Joey, are needs-based and how much best available talent?
Well, I think it's horses for courses now for clubs, and I think that's what they try and decide. They would have their board and there'd be some names that they'd have ranked higher that are available, but also at this time of the draft, you're looking for, some clubs are looking for a specific need.
With pick 52, Collingwood have selected Harvey Harrison from North Adelaide.
Gone for speed. The quickest kid in Australia this year. That's a good rap to have. The fastest over the 20 metres with a 2.85 seconds. So that's the pick-me moment that he's had. You'll go back and see him kick a couple of goals playing for SA against the Allies too. That was an early curtain raiser to the Sandford Grand Final there at the Adelaide Oval. Very clever goals they were from his 14, 15 possessions. So plays through the midfield. Been a prolific winner of the ball at under 18 level there at his club there at North Adelaide. But was that quickness that obviously has caught the eye of the Collingwood scouts.
Bit of pace for the Pies, Joey. You like that?
Oh, well, pace is always important at AFL level. You know, to run a 2.8, 20-metre sprint, pretty impressive, and can play on the inside. They can obviously get to the outside as well and use his legs. So you see what the Collingwood have been able to do with this draft on top of the amount of picks that they were able to have last year. You know, they stocked up with 6 kids between picks 17 and 44 last year. They've been able to get a couple of picks between sort of 45 and 52. And out of that bunch, you know, they hope that 3 or 4 of them can become, you know, real stars and those real sort of diamonds in the rough we've spoken about tonight.
I think the Pies would be pretty happy so far. Mick, tell us about this young fella, Harvey Harrison.
Yeah, well, Luke Power, the former NAB AFL Academy coach that's now development coach at Carlton, I remember him saying in training sessions to the boys, there's no time to walk in today's footy. Get on the move, stay on the move. You've got to be jogging and moving. This kid does that. He is constantly on the move. He's got an exceptional work ethic and really high work rate, which is what the modern game requires. So he's a player that can certainly stay up tempo, get from contest to contest and make sure he stays involved in the game.
What about Ned Long? He's best mates with Josh Ward. Is he a chance to go tonight or the rookie draft tomorrow? What do you make of his football, Shifter?
It was just the lack of games with him. He certainly has the potential to do it because I've seen him dominate. I thought he was best on the ground in a game early in the year, but then it was the injury that kept him out of all the main games later on. So he got AFL attributes at that size. We were talking about him before. There's a bit of Paddy Cripps about him with his size at the stoppage, or even a Josh Kennedy. He's got quick hands, doesn't need leg speed, and then he marks it up forward.
With pick 53, Hawthorn have selected Jai Sarong from the Gippsland Power.
There we go, the brother of Caleb.
Yeah, and I hope he's been watching, or he would have been watching Caleb, but he would have missed a fellow called Nat Fyfe in the middle either, because this is a different size brother. He's the 193. He'd be watching the way Fyfe goes about as a tall midfielder. I don't know his position for down the track, whether he's a forward or a back. He's certainly athletic enough to be a player with what we've seen of him. Also a talented cricketer, so decisions are made by many of these boys as to what sort of career they want to pursue, and he's chosen his footy. He was down at the Geelong Grammar as well, so we've seen him at different times down there at the Gippsland Power in those free positions.
Yeah, timing is everything there, Joey, isn't it? Yeah. To pick ahead of Fremantle.
Yeah, absolutely, and he's nothing like his older brother Caleb. He's much taller. He's that real sort of project player, third tall forward. Got some real upside. So, yeah, he's grown as well. He's grown a huge amount in the last sort of 12 months. So, yeah, it's a project player for the Hawks. As we spoke about the forward line, you know, we know about Gunston and Brewston. They've been able to try and see if they can jag a star in late in the pick in their forward line.
Mick, do you think Fremantle were hoping to get him at pick 54?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Tommy, isn't it, that they had the next pick. So the Hawks may have taken that into consideration. No doubt he would have been on Fremantle's board at some stage. He is, again, similar to the Warner brothers, very, very different. This kid's a really nice hit-up. So I know what Shifter's talking about. It's interesting to know where he's going to fit. But he naturally hits up at the footy. He's very, very good overhead. And I think that could be his position to start off. Very similar. You touched on Bruce and Gunston and the like that do that are in the back end of their career. Well, this kid might end up learning underneath them and slotting in quite nicely.
I actually believe Fremantle would have taken him with pick 54 as well. It's a very interesting selection from Hawthorn, and I just wonder sometimes whether the clubs sit there and they have a player they want to get and they're just worried about a couple of clubs getting underneath the player and getting them that they want. And that's what happened here. Hawthorn said, no, we want Jai Sarong. Fremantle missed out and they'll have to get someone else now. So what do you think they're looking at, Shifter? Give us some names. What are some players on the board that the Dockers will be saying, yep, we can get him, we can make him an AFL player?
Well, why don't you go for the form of a boy from home that won the Jack Clark medal? That's the equivalent of the Morris or the Lark medal. It's the best and fairest player in the Colts in WA. His name's Josh Brown, so a ball winner. You know, he's a boy that's formed this year, averaged 32 disposals a game with his outside run, his inside stuff, his footy smarts, all of that. He's got the running capacity of a Bailey Smith. He might be using the ball as well as a Bailey at the moment, but you like to reward boys with performance. Another one, Bryce Watson, a dashing defender from over there at Swan Districts, I think has got some AFL attributes. So they're boys that would have made the boards of most clubs and would be contenders. Woden, of course, what will happen there? The best of the WA. Jack Williams, I haven't seen bob up as well. Eric Benning's another.
With pick 54, Fremantle have selected Next Generation Academy nominee Eric Benning from the Waffle Colts CFC.
A very promising type, this boy. So he's there, Next Gen Academy, an Indigenous boy. Watched him play and thought, that's Paddy Ryder as a 17-year-old,
Wow.
you know. He's a big athletic boy that shows you glimpses of some special stuff, the marking, the mobility. At 196 centimetres, he might get to 198, and he's a boy from up in the East Kimberley Football League. That's wonderful to see that he's taken the punt and got down there to Claremont to pursue a career, and he's now got a chance at an AFL club. Good luck to Big Eric.
Big improver over the last 12 months, that real athletic, you know, developing ruck. He's raw, going to take time, but as we said, when you get these picks, you can speculate and try and see if they can develop someone. If he's half as good as Paddy Ryder, I'm sure Fremantle will be over the moon.
Mick, are you surprised? Are you concerned? Are you happy where Eric's gone? Do you think he deserved to get picked up in this position?
Yeah, I love this. I'm well done to the Fremantle Football Club in investing in their own. They didn't wait for a bid to come on him. They've actually picked him. So that's give them a lot of credit and give the young man a lot of credit too. The East Kimberley's a long way away. I know we saw on the board that consistency's a question mark. Talent's not. He's got plenty of that, and consistency will come through greater exposure to the program at Fremantle. And again, coming down from as far away as what he did into the Colts competition is a big step for these guys. So he'll do some exciting things.
With pick 55, Port Adelaide have selected Hugh Jackson from North Adelaide.
That's Port's first pick tonight. Shifter?
Pretty happy with that one. They would be too. Again, a boy that started early in the year. He was in all of the best teams of the week, all that sort of chat about a possible, top 30 spot in the draft this year. But again, it was a hip injury late in the year that we just didn't see him right at the back end. Elite kick of the ball, an elite kick again. It's the most important, I think, in the modern game, isn't it? If you turn it over, they're not going to give you much of a look at it unless you're the bull in the middle, feed it out with your hands. So he's an outside player. Some flashes of Josh Kelly when you're talking about the eliteness of the use of the ball. Could end up on the wing, but, it was very prominent as a half-back.
Another natural footballer, prolific ball winner, came second in the Sandful Under-18 competition in the best and fairest, and has that ability to play inside and out. Averaged the 29 disposals and 12 contested, playing for South Australia in the Under-18. So just another natural footballer that might be able to develop into the midfield in a few years' time.
And look at these pick 56s. It's a bit like your 37s, Joey. There's some diamonds in the rough.
There are. Pick 56 has a good history. Look at that. There's 4 players that have all played 400-plus games, and even in recent times, I mean, James Sicily, Dougal Howard, Jordan Dawson, all, very good players in the current competition. So, as we said, it doesn't matter how late these picks are. If the recruiters do their homework and find something, you can still get one.
With pick 56, Port Adelaide have selected Dante Visentini from the Sandringham Dragons.
2-metre Dante. We're going to go 2-metre Peter. That's what he plays like. He's a 201-centimetre boy that wrapped his picked up. He can play ruck and then take the big grab up forward, which he's done for Sandy. He's done that for Vic Metro. So a lovely size, but it'll take him 2 or 3 years, but he plays with great passion and leadership. He shows a love of the game when you watch him from over the fence, and just invested in a tall player that's going to be the one that'll give you a chip out in the ruck, but plays a tall forward as well.
So they traded out Peter Laddams. They clearly see Sam Hayes as playing some more senior footy next year. Not sure if he's a specialist ruckman, Dante, but this clearly helps with their tall stocks, Joey.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you can speculate with these picks late. And I just shifter, has Jace Burgoyne been bid on yet? Port Adelaide?
No,
he hasn't.
Taken with their last
pick, they get him. Yeah, so they've still got Jace Burgoyne to come through, which of course is the son of Peter Burgoyne. So they're going to get him as well, who is that sort of tall, quick wingman as well. So Port Adelaide will still have a strong hand in this draft, even though the picks have come late.
I've been interested in Hawthorn all night tonight. So the Hawks they've really cut the lunch of two clubs. They took Connor McDonald, the pick before Carlton. He was strongly linked to Carlton, and then Jai Sarong at 53. It's interesting to see what they're going to do here with pick 57. They've been rebuilding pretty aggressively, the Hawks, for the past few weeks, really, including the trade period. But now this is their draft. This is when they come into their own. What about Casey Voss, shifter? Where are we looking for him? Is he a chance to go, the son of Michael Voss?
Well, the best and fairest winner at senior level. He just, about the 20, 21 years of age, and just described by his coach as one of the smartest players he's ever seen play at state league level. So he's got the footy smarts of the Vosses. We think he probably gets a chance. It might be tomorrow, but certainly had a breakout year.
So Hawthorn are going to pass. They've passed all selections, so they're done for the night. They joined GWS and some other clubs having done their work. So that's their selection so far. What do you make of that draft haul, Joey? Starting with Joshua Ward with pick 7 last night.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice balance. So we know they wanted to get into the draft. They've got their star midfielder in Ward. They've got that other sort of mid-forward, Sam Butler, who's got that explosiveness to get in and out of traffic. Connor McDonald is your more old-fashioned big ball accumulator, can play in the midfield. That's sort of his predominant spot, as that inside mid who gets a lot of footy. And then they've speculated with an athletic sort of third tall forward at 193 centimetres who's got some real upside. So they've got some real balance out of this draft period, and I think Mark McKenzie and the Hawks will be really pleased with what they've done.
You agree with that, Shifter?
Spot on. Summed it up perfectly. They talked about midfield and wanting players to come through there. That's a great group of three there. And then Sarong's a great investment for the future.
All right, the Saints are up next. We're in the 4th round now of this 2021 draft on Fox Footy. Hope you're enjoying it. There's still some players to be picked up, some pretty mature age players as well, some talented young men who'll be hoping to get a lifeline either tonight or tomorrow at the rookie draft. Of course, you can follow that on foxfooty.com.au.
Interesting there, St Kilda's, the draft profile says that the general forward, they're ranked 18th in the competition, just for the natural forward. So we know they've got King and Membry and a couple of smalls, but they're going to pass for the night. They're done?
No, they're going to stay, but they've passed there.
That pick.
Yep. So we've got the next pick. That's Simon Lethlean out the back with Danny Sexton. He's been in the club for quite some time in a variety of roles.
So we'll expect some clubs to start passing up now.
Yep.
There is flexibility with the list at AFL level. You can have that flexibility between 36 and 38 selections. So you can, if there is someone still on the board that you want, you can make room for a spot on the list. There's a bit more flexibility than there used to be in the past. So I'm interested to see if clubs still find something they want, or they're all prepared to pass now and be happy with what they have.
I just wonder whether they passed on 56 to give themselves more time with 57. That'll give them another 5 minutes to select who they want, rather than take whoever they had on the board that's next. Oh no, that was wrong. They passed again.
The other opportunities, of course, but the supplemental period just been introduced now in the last couple of years. You can bring a couple in over summer and work out which one you want to keep. The mid-season draft is now back and running again. If you've got a spot, you can use it halfway through the year. So that's the flexibility they're giving
Clubs
them
want to
now.
they like giving themselves that bit of flexibility because,
leave some room.
Yeah.
This is the Fox Lab rank. Ned Long still there. The man we spoke about before, Charlie Dean. And we know Casey Voss down there as well. So they're all in the mix. It's just up to the clubs who they want to take next.
Of course, there's still a chance for these players. As we said, the rookie draft coming up. Some of them can train on, and if there's that opportunity, if there is some injury through the pre-season, to get on a list in the new year. And of course, mid-season draft for these players. Hopefully, season 2022, we can get full years of football away, whether it's in Victoria and in their states. Hopefully we're through all the COVID and they can put some football together and show some body of work of what these players have got that maybe clubs haven't been able to see enough of at the moment to draft. And there's always opportunity mid-season, and then, of course, you can still come back and go again next year's draft.
So you might ask why the Saints have passed on 2 picks but are staying in the draft. I think it's probably in case anyone bids on Jack Peris, who's the son of Nova Peris, the former Australian Olympian, hockey player and runner, as West Coast submit their pick.
With pick 57, the West Coast Eagles have selected Jack Williams from East Fremantle.
That's the 13th player taken from WA this draft, Shifter. Tell us about him.
Well, he's a big-bodied forward. He's got a real physical presence. He presents all of the time. I'm amazed he's there at 57. I think clearly in 40, just the way he takes the most marks of any young player over in WA with that presence across half forward. Averaged, he gets the ball a bit too. He averages 15 disposals and 6 marks a game, kicked 40 goals for the year, and was prominent in those representative games. Remember that WA were unbeaten at under-19 level this year, and he was a key player for them, Jack Williams. So they'll be delighted in a long-term key forward.
Yeah, of course, Josh Kennedy, we know, the superstar, coming towards the end. They've still got Oscar Allen and Jack Darling, who is getting on, but is starting to replenish and looking ahead to 3-4 years down the track. And Jack Williams is that key forward who can pinch hit in the ruck. And another one who stayed local, another Western Australian pick. So the Eagles have really kept it homegrown this year.
And the Swans have just passed on that selection, and now they're at pick 58. Mick, what are your thoughts on Jack Williams? Have you seen much of him play, and how much of an impact can he have? Maybe not next year, but certainly down the track.
Yeah, well, it's a hot recruiting area, the East Fremantle zone, and West Coast have done it again. They've made a habit of this, investing in local talent, particularly later in the draft with some great success. So you look at a player like Jack Williams, he can kick multiple goals. He's kicked 2 or more in 12 out of 15 games. So when he does hit the scoreboard, he does kick multiple goals, which is important. Joey mentioned the need to address some of those players that are starting to transition out. They've done that very, very well for a long period of time, the Eagles recruiting group. And again, Jack's going to be a work in progress and somebody that may take a little bit of time, but that's what the Eagles have. They have time. They've got forwards that can step up at the moment, even in the absence of Josh Kennedy. So nice pick from the Eagles and a player that I look forward to watching develop.
Good stuff, Mick, as always. So let's have a look at Freo's picks and see what sort of draft they've had so far, because they are out of this draft now, so there'll be no more selections tonight, Joey.
They'll be absolutely stoked. 4 Western Australians, the 3 there, Miss Erasmus and Johnson, were all ranked in most people's sort of top 10 or 12, so to walk away with 3, you know, top 10, 12 talented players, all Western Australian, to go with the group that they've already sort of got in recent years and build on that midfield. They tick some areas off with that midfield depth, some versatility there with Johnson inside, outside, Erasmus with that ability to play inside and forward. They get their key forward that they can develop, and then that young, you know, the young ruck that they can develop over time. So Fremantle will be absolutely wrapped with what they've done this year.
Do you like what they've done tonight and also last night, Shifter?
I do. They've capitalised on the great form of their kids at under-19 level. They look to be the best young group around, and to keep 4 of them, that's a pretty good hand.
Staying in WA, what about Josh Cripps, Patrick's taller brother? I'll just hold that thought because we've got a pick coming in for the Sydney Swans. Let's go to Brad Scott.
With pick 58, the Sydney Swans have selected Lachlan Rankin from the Oakley Chargers.
So he was quite high up on the Fox Lab rankings, Shifter.
Yeah, I like him as a selection too. He's a boy from Beverly Hills, what a football club it's been in producing the Christian Petrarcas, even back to Paul Roos and Mark Branning from many years ago. And a boy that can play half back or half forward. His point of difference is his use of the ball. He's a great kick, spots up the smaller, the shorter targets or the longer ones, and he's got goal sense when he gets forward. I think he's better back behind the ball, which he played a couple of years ago, but that versatility gives him a whole range of spots that he can play into the future.
Now that kicking's been a feature of the Swans recruiting in recent years. You think of Braden Campbell and Errol Gordon, 2 elite kicks of the competition already, and even Dylan Stevens, another high draft pick in recent years. So they've got the knack of getting those highly talented, skillful players.
Lachlan Rankin, Mick, tell us about him.
Yeah, I had him down, Tommy, as someone that reminded me of a more athletic Jack Higgins. That's no disrespect to Jack, so let's not light up social media, Jack, with all your followers, but that's actually a really big compliment because he is really smart. He's footy IQ, he's nous around goals, and that ability to hit the scoreboard consistently. He averaged a goal a game, which for a small forward's really, really important, but he is highly intelligent inside forward 50.
This is the Giants' picks. Finn Callahan, we saw that at pick 3. I think they had him lined up for quite some time. Geez, didn't the second pick, didn't Leck just take us all a bit by surprise there, Joey and Shifter? We didn't expect that, but they've taken him and they're very happy with it.
Oh, he's got some upside, hasn't he? The potential on him, he's through the roof. He's some of his highlights of his intercept marking are as good as you'll see. So, again, the Giants will be happy with what they've done and being able to keep the homegrown talent in Faye as well.
They really believed that they could take Lecalier and no one else would go near him. And he wasn't really being spoken about as a first-round draft pick shifter. What can you tell us about him?
Well, just that leap was sensational, wasn't he? That was the stamp that he put on himself at that combine with a 107-centimetre running vertical jump that we all talked about, went back to his vision, picked up on his story as to the gaps in his underage years where he had some injuries, and then unfolded the back half of the year at senior level. The advantage of playing that back half that many of the kids around Victoria particularly didn't play that last 7 or 8 games of the year. That's when he was starring. He interviewed so well. The club said that, gee, he's an impressive young man. Someone's going to take him. They thought it might be from 30 onwards, but once the Giants had set their minds on him, it didn't matter what pick he was going to be. Yeah. They wanted the centre-half back that's going to be there for the long term, and so they upgraded. Good on them. Very few things stay quiet in football, but that did stay quiet. We had no idea. That was a one from left field. So the Giants are out at the moment for the night. North Melbourne, we're waiting on them. They've got 3 minutes remaining. They've had a busy night, North Melbourne. In fact, they've had a busy draft, as you'd expect with any club that's rebuilding, Joey. How do you rate their list strategy and the way they've gone about it? Really for the last 2 years, when you include Jaden Stevenson in that discussion as well. Yeah, that's right. We know they invested heavily in the midfield in recent years. They got Tom Powell and Will Phillips, and they brought in Stevenson, and they've really stocked up in that area now. And now they can start to build outside. I think they've done really well with their sort of key position forward rucks, and they're continuing to build their list.
With pick 59, North Melbourne have selected father-son nominee Jackson Archer from the Northern Knights.
That's a great moment. That is romanticism in football. We love to see that, Shifter.
Fantastic. And, of course, Glenn, maybe he's the shin boner of the century, 300-odd games. What a courageous player. Well, this boy's a chip off the old block. Yeah. I tell you what, he's not as big. What a surprise to see tough there. He is not, but he's tough. Yeah. Straight and hard at the ball. Seen him a number of occasions for the Northern Knights, and as well as running hard and straight, he makes great decisions too. He's only lightly built at the moment. He'll take a while. I think Glenn was a late developer. Even might have played some under-19 footy in his way through, but become a star of the game. Love this boy's composure with the footy too. He hit his targets and was still developing as a young player, and a great moment for the North Melbourne Footy Club. I'm sure North Melbourne will get him a profile shot as well, maybe even as soon as tomorrow. The father-son rule's terrific, isn't it? We love it in the game. Do you think the AFL has it right at the moment with the way it's set up? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you still get the opportunity to be able to get those father-sons into the football club, which we want to keep in our game, but it's probably a bit more fair than it used to be back when I started, when Gary Ablett Jr. went for pick 40 and Joe Watson went for pick 40 and all those sorts of things. So I think they've made it a bit more fair now, but it still does give the clubs a chance to get the father-sons in. There's another one in now for Port Adelaide.
With pick 60, Port Adelaide have selected father-son nominee Jace Burgoyne from the Eagles.
Premiership player Peter Burgoyne, and now his son's at the club.
Repeat story, hey. A champion of the game was Peter, Indigenous team of the century. We forget that now with Sean, his brother, being such a wonderful player in more recent years. But Pete was a star, 240 games there at Port. This boy's a player. I'm shocked he's not bid upon. Just the naked eye watching him play. He's got exciting pace, steps around him, kicks it well, comes from half-back again, but also can get up through the midfield. Just lightly built. He played some senior footy too this year over there in the SANFL, as well as those rep games. Was in the Australian under-18s early in the year too. That's how good his form was. And you get him a choice 60. He seems to be very much a bargain for me.
Speaking about romanticism, unfortunately his brother Trent just got delisted from Port Adelaide, so they don't get to cross paths, but I'm sure Jace will forge his own career. And of course, you know, his uncle Sean is now doing some work at the footy club as well, so they're keeping it in the family there at Port Adelaide. I'm sure Port were very happy to get Sean Burgoyne. They'll be very happy to get Jace Burgoyne. Mick, take us inside his football. What does he do? What are his strengths?
Well, he's frighteningly like his old man. It's uncanny. I kept watching the vision over and over and over, and like Shifter said, it's hard to see why he wasn't bid on, because it's just his composure. Like Peter had this knack of putting the game into slow motion, and so's Jace. It's just that ability to take your time. Almost looks like he's got an extra 2 or 3 seconds than what other players have around the ground to make his decisions.
With pick 61, the Western Bulldogs have selected Luke Cleary from the Sandringham Dragons.
The Sandringham Dragons, they are a breeding ground. That's 34 players in the last couple of drafts that have gone there, and they've had 8 players from this draft taken They're a very good football club, aren't they?
Well, Luke, congratulations. Don't take no for the answer. Overlooked last year, overlooked in the mid-season draft. He'd played in the Young Guns game. He presented for Vic Metro then. And it's going to be that story for many kids in draft stories, that you'll get overlooked and knocked back, but he kept improving and working on his game. Reads the angles fantastically well. 190-centimetre half-back. Great decision-maker. End up second in their best and fairest at Sandy this year behind Finn Callaghan. So he can play, this boy. It's a late pick, but he's onto the primary list. I thought maybe it might have had to wait again for a rookie tomorrow, but that's great news for this young fella from Beaumaris, and as I say, played that representative footy and kept going at it, at his dream of getting into the AFL. He's finally rewarded.
8's a huge haul for Sandy Dragons. That's double more than anyone else. And I said 34. That's over the last 5 years, and that's more than anyone else as well. So they're a breeding ground at the moment.
Well, they always have been. You know, going back to when I got drafted with Ball and Ball and Judd. We're all there, and then so they've always been a wonderful football club, the Sandringham Dragons.
It is the hottest spot for talent in Australia. Yeah. We analyse that every year. There's 90-odd regions in Australia we look at, and it's about 6 a year on average. That includes primary list and those that are rookie listed that go up and play one game. That's the criteria, and it is the hottest spot.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the football mindedness of the area. They love the game. The people in that area are steeped in footy. All these footy clubs like the Beaumarises of the world, you know, they're the breeding grounds from all the Auskick centres underneath it. The finishing school, of course, is the Sandringham Dragons, but it's been a rich footy area for a long, long time.
All right, let's see what Jason Cripps has got up his sleeve. There's been a trade. Now it's up to West Coast. We'll wait and see what that trade is. The Eagles and Port. And that's what it is. So the Eagles get pick 62 and Port, there we go, Joey, they get that future fourth rounder.
Yeah, not sure what the clubs have got there. I'm sure there's a reason for that. Well, West Coast Eagles will take pick 62 and they might use it on someone now, potentially.
That future fourth rounder could easily be pick 62.
Yep.
So we don't actually know how it benefits either club at the moment, but one thing we do know is it must be mutually beneficial, otherwise they wouldn't do it. So now West Coast are on the clock. 2 minutes 30 remaining.
There's still someone in the draft pool that they fancy. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Someone there that they
maybe
thought...
a Greg Clark, potentially?
It could be. Someone like that they thought, gee, we've got to go now. Well, don't worry about next year. We've got someone left in here that we want to grab.
With pick 62, the West Coast Eagles have selected Greg Clark from Subiaco.
Bang, I'm sitting with two absolute geniuses here.
That's spot on. Fantastic and great to see. I knew this boy 6 years ago when he was in the National Academy with all the best kids in Australia. Was disappointed then that he was overlooked. He was an outside wingman then. He's now an inside mid, a captain, a leader, best on the ground in the Waffle Grand Final. He gets his chance. There was other clubs interested as well. Waited a long time.
Great story. 24-year-old, been dominating the Waffle. He's massive. I watched vision of him. He's a massive unit in the midfield, ready to play straight away. He's a good size. He runs hard. He competes. He's a leader. I think they've got themselves a beauty. And it's a great sign of perseverance that all the kids that have missed out on the draft tonight, he's gone back. He's taken a lot longer than most others. I mean, 4, 5, 6 years in the system. Now gets a crack at it. We wish him luck and hopefully he can impact at AFL level for the Eagles. But it's a great story and, as we said, a great sign of perseverance and resilience.
Yeah, Mick, this must be one of the stories of the draft. Tell us about him, 24 years old.
Yeah, I'm absolutely rapt for this young fella. Like Kev said, he is an example of someone that completely transformed their game. Very outside as an underage player. I watched him play in the grand final this year. He got absolutely crunched in the first quarter and a lot of players wouldn't have got up. Got up, went off the ground, had the shoulder taped up. From what I'm led to believe, played out the rest of the game on painkillers and came out best on ground. So he's a player that's come a long, long way. He's a beast, Joey, you're right. But full credit to Beau Wardman, the lead coach there, and to Christian Dicton, the footy manager. They've instilled a lot of confidence in this young man. They've backed him in. I mentioned that he was captain. No offence to Lee Kitchen, who is the captain of Subi, an ex-Frankston boy, but Greg did stand in when Lee was injured and did an outstanding job. His leadership's always been there, but for all the young fellas around the country, go and have a look at Greg Clark. And if you see him play some league footy, which hopefully he does in 2022, he's just an outstanding example of perseverance, somebody that never gave up and did take the advice on board and went and changed his game. So congratulations to Greg and the Subiaco Footy Club. That's 3 players in this draft out of WA. Great result for them.
Fantastic. What a great story. That's 14 players from WA as well taken in this draft. so far. Let's go to Marvel Stadium where Sarah Ollie is standing by with Kinnear Beatson from the Sydney Swans Footy Club.
Kinnear, 4 selections this draft. Let's start with pick 18, your first selection, Angus Sheldrick. Now, this isn't a player that we projected to go in the first round. Tell us a bit about him.
Yeah, look, it's fair to say Angus is a bit of a bolter, given that he didn't play a lot last year because of a fractured collarbone, and then he missed pre-season because he had to have the plate taken off the collarbone, and then he developed tonsillitis, so his season got off to a bit of a slow start, but midway through to the finals and through the national championships, his form we just thought was outstanding. Look, he's a rotund little player, but he's as hard as a cat's head, if you like. Really good contested ball winner, but also gets out into some space and gets some loose ball, which is important. Penetrating left foot kick. But to us, he just seems like one of these kids. If you challenge him about something, he'll prove to you that you were wrong. And that's a great attribute to have in a young player. So, yeah, in our minds, not a bolter, but we can understand a lot of the pundits thinking that way.
Hard as a cat's head. That's also what Kevin Sheehan said to describe him yesterday. I love the story about Corey Warner. He's going to be playing alongside his brother, Chad. You selected him with pick 40, but he's nothing like his brother, is that right?
No, he's more of a hybrid mid, Corey. He plays both inside, midfield and outside, but he had a really interesting year, starting off in the Colts for East Fremantle, then working his way into the senior side, then having to go back to college footy, and then coming back and playing a bit more senior footy before finishing off the year playing with WA in the national championships. A really strong runner, gut runner, needs a little bit of work to do on his kicking. He's got to polish that up, but Corey's aware of that. And the link with Chad, well, that's a good story and it helps.
Did Chad get in your ear at all?
Pardon?
Did Chad get in your ear at all?
No, Chad didn't, not at all. But I just got a lovely text from his mother before Anita saying, "I love you," which I thought was lovely.
I'm sure you'll be getting those messages from Swans fans all over the country, Kinnear. They'll be saying, "We love you." But just before I let you go, any news as well on Louis Taylor?
Yeah, look, Louis will be, our aim is to take him back tomorrow in the rookie draft. So he's contracted for another year and we'll do that. We're really pleased that Louis was in a position to allow us to do that, to delist him with the promise of taking him back. And I think you'll find there'll be a lot of clubs doing that tomorrow, taking players back, like Sammy Mays, I think Cameron Ellis-Yolman, some of them, they come back. So, yes, we'll be taking Louis tomorrow.
Beautiful. Kinnear, thanks for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Joey, I feel like Sarah Ollie could talk to Kinnear Beatson all night.
Yeah.
He's a big Swan supporter, and great that Kinnear could give us that time. I want to ask you, Shifter, as we wait at the moment on the next pick, on Cooper Hamilton. He posted the second fastest time ever in the 2K time trial. Not selected yet. Are we likely to see him either tonight or tomorrow?
I can't answer that exactly, but geez, I hope so, because I think he's got some special attributes, not just that. I like his marking, his versatility. Just underdone this year. He's played the 4 games in NAB League and some school footy at Caulfield Grammar. Didn't play it all last year, so you mightn't have enough data to go on to be able to pick him. Would be the case, so you encourage he's a twin, actually. His twin brother Hugh's a good player as well. He's a different player, he's an inside midfielder. So the pair of boys, if it doesn't happen tonight, it may happen tomorrow. If not, you dig in like Luke Cleary and all the other boys we've talked about and just prove. You just test your resilience. It does. Your love of the game. But for 25% of players over time, it's not happened in the first time they're up for the draft. You know, they'll improve and work out where they really want to play it and get their chances. It's riddled through 37 years of draft history, those sorts of numbers. So hang in there's the message. It's full of disappointment. All professional sport is, where it's not picked at a cricket team or footy team. It's part of life, and it really does. It's a very disappointing moment it is, but then that goes away pretty quickly. Your mates get around you. So I think he's got some attributes, and I'll back him into the next 24 hours or in the next year or so to come through and play.
I look forward to reading more and seeing more about Greg Clark as well, seeing where he was as an 18-year-old, seeing how many times he was knocked back. And then the fact he's on West Coast primary list now is a great story, isn't it? 24 years old. I know we've spoken about it, but this should prove to all young men around Australia that they can make it if they continue to work hard enough.
Absolutely. It is possible, and as I said, there's only been the 60 selections, or not even 60 selections tonight, so it's getting harder, and there has been some issues with list sizes and salary caps, and we know it's been a really hectic and difficult period for the AFL the last couple of years, as it's been around the world with everything. So there still will be opportunities in the future, and there's still some talent certainly out there.
So Adrian Nadoro there and Josh Marnie. Just waiting on who Essendon's next pick is going to be. I think they're one of that.
Yeah, let's look at the Essendon there, that Garrett McDonough there that we spoke about earlier. We didn't know a lot about. He was a Northern Knights boy that played with Jaden Short and Jason Castagna a number of years ago, and then went to play VFL. So another one of these great stories, Tom.
Yep.
Played for the Northern Blues, then went to Coburg, then went back and played for West Preston in the Diamond Valley, then went and had another crack at VFL. And now he's been drafted as a 25-year-old on Essendon's primary list. So we talk about Greg Clark, but Garrett McDonough, there's another story of resilience and perseverance and never giving up on his dream. And now at 25 years of age, he'll be on Essendon's list looking to push in that side for a game.
So Essendon are out of the draft now. They've made the call, so they're done for tonight. They'll reconvene tomorrow ahead of the rookie draft. Of course, you can follow that on foxfooty.com.au. We're waiting on the Sydney Swans now. We know St Kilda are staying in, we think, just in case anyone bids for Jack Perris, who, of course, is the very speedy son of Nova Perris, the former Australian Olympian, hockey and athletics in 1996 and 2000. Now it's up to Port Adelaide with Sydney Swans, and they're out. And we'll wait and see what Port Adelaide can do here. Let's have a look at the Sydney Swans, though, Joey and Shifter, and how they've gone so far in this draft. We just heard from Kinnear Beatson. What do they need, and are they able to cover any of those needs in the players they've selected?
Yeah, well, he said then he didn't think Angus Sheldrick was as much of a bolter as what many pundits thought. They really rated him. As I said, that hard, tough player, got plenty of ability to win the football on the inside, Shifter, and he's going to be the replacement for Joey Kennedy, who's been so good, and as Luke Parker gets a little bit on in age, he's one that can go into that midfield and be that big bull in there. We know Matthew Roberts is just that natural footballer who's got some class with his left leg and can play in a number of positions. And, of course, they spoke then Corey Warner, brother of Chad, who we thought was maybe more of an outside player, but Kinnear then said he's got that ability to play inside and outside, and that sort of hybrid midfielder that we know is a bit of the prototype of modern football.
So they're all standing up in the port room. Something's going on. Jason Cripps is working his magic. Someone's on the phone. Philosophically, Joey, how much of a role should the coach have to play in these discussions around the draft? We see John Longmire's in the room. I saw Brett Ratton in the room as well, but Damien Hardwick, for example, is overseas. So how much of a role does the senior coach play?
Look, they're certainly involved in conversations, but at the end of the day, they delegate to the experts in these cases. That's the list managers and the recruiters that have done all the work and hundreds of hours of watching these players. At the end of the day, they've got to back those people to make the calls, but they're certainly involved in the conversations of maybe the type of players they're looking for, what they need, and those sorts of things.
And I'd think too, ask the hard questions, you know, as
challenge.
Challenge your recruiters, your list managers about the type of player you're getting, so he knows what he has to handle when they come in. And that's why they have long conversations about the way they invest every single pick. They're investing $200,000 to $300,000 in every pick. Through what you spend, what you're going to pay, so it's a lot of money that you're putting into it, and you normally got them for a couple of years as well, so you need to know them pretty thoroughly.
So Port Adelaide's draft hand, they got Joshua Sint, who they wanted in that draft. They traded up for him. He's going to be that run, dashing, sort of half-back winger, beautiful user. Think of Josh Kelly at the Giants, and then some other speed with Jace Burgoyne, who's going to play on the wing, and then 2-metre Dante. Is that
what you called him, Shifter?
I did.
Named him. I don't know if it'll stick, but 2-metre Dante. And, of course, Hugh Jackson as well, who's another midfielder that probably outside but can play inside, outside, and a prolific ball winner.
It's good to see Gold Coast for the first time tonight. We haven't really mentioned them. Maybe this is the selection, dare I say, Joey, they would have used on Hugh Greenwood. We're not sure what's going to happen.
Maybe they get a Hugh Greenwood replacement, Tom.
Maybe they do. Maybe they do. The pick is in. I'll get your thoughts after this.
With pick 63, the Gold Coast Suns have selected Charlie Constable from the Geelong Cats.
Placement Shifter, isn't it, for Hugh Greenwood?
Like for like. Yeah, maybe the opportunity will come for him because, look, he's a good player, great player at the VFL level, lacked opportunity as the tall midfielder like a Greenwood, isn't he? Not over quick, but he gets the hands on the ball at stoppage, prolific ball winner, keen to get another shot at it, and he's going to get that crack.
Yeah, another one who's dominated at VFL level. I mean, look at those numbers there. Clearances, contested ball, always wins plenty of footy. Just hasn't been able to get that opportunity because of how strong the Geelong midfield has been over the last 4 or 5 years. But another one, resilience, perseverance, opportunity. I mean, he wouldn't have known what was happening. Of course, the Hugh Greenwood situation happens, and now he gets a chance to reinvent his career at the Gold Coast Suns.
It was a bit of a PR catastrophe for Gold Coast, but I don't think they've lost a lot here. Hugh Greenwood can play. Charlie Constable's younger. He's probably not being paid as much as what Hugh Greenwood was. I don't think they'd lose too much by getting Charlie to replace Hugh.
That's a bit of a free hit for them. He might turn out to be the star that he always promised, and they get a good look at it at the Gold Coast.
And they get to save some money as well. Hopefully keeps Ben King, Jack Lukosius, Isaac Rankin next year. They've already re-signed Tuke Miller. That's a great signature on a long-term deal. And the Richmond Footy Club are waiting for them now. Gold Coast are out for the night, so just a small role for them. This is Richmond's evening so far. This is their evening tonight. Joey and Shifter. They've selected 5 players. It started with Josh Gibcus last night. It's continued on.
Yeah, well, there's a little birdie that's saying that maybe the Richmond side might be flirting with Gibcus as a forward, because we know they didn't take a tall forward in this draft. We know that Tom Lynch and Jack Riewoldt are sort of closer to the end than the start of their careers, and they've lost Coleman Jones and Marbiol Chol. So maybe just keep an eye out over the pre-season whether Gibcus maybe trains with the forwards. We know he can be an elite intercept defender if need be, and can always go back in time. You know, they've got Noah Bolter, and while they've still got Grimes and a few others, maybe they can experiment with him as a forward. Tom Brown's that intercepting defender. And then, as Shifter and I spoke about earlier, the 3 midfielders that have all got a bit of different variety about them, but they needed to replenish their midfield because of those ageing stars in Koch and Edwards and Lambert and Prestia, etc.
Can Gibcus play forward, Shifter?
Haven't seen him there. A wonderful athlete, first-choice athlete, and improving all the time. Very coachable kid. You never know. Look, we've seen so much of that over time where we think they're such and such, and it changes in 2 years' time as they get into the professional sort of era with the clubs.
Just as we wait on Geelong, you see Andrew Mackie and Stephen Wells standing up there. Stephen Wells is sitting down. I've got some numbers here. From 2016 to 2018, there was 75 or more players drafted in every national draft. 2019 was 65. 2020 was 59. And this year's just 63 so far. Why do you think the number's going down, Shifter, in the national draft?
Well, I think the list went back by a couple of spots there last year, and they've kept blokes, haven't they? The state leagues haven't played, the reserves haven't played to the normal number of games to assess a player, so it's unfair to let them go. So they've kept them on a wee bit more, so we've had slightly less turnover, I'd reckon, of players.
All right, let's head over to Marvel Stadium now, with Sarah Ollie doing a great job for us all night, is with Hawthorn's Mark McKenzie. Take it away, Sarah.
Mark, 4 selections this draft, but I want to start with Sam Mitchell, the coach. It's his first draft in charge. How did he go in there? Who was in charge, you or him?
No, he was in charge of the Lollies. He definitely brought the upbeat part of the Knights on both. You know, he's really been into it the last couple of months, really, in regards to viewing the players. But he was upbeat. He's come into interviews the last couple of months. But he brought the Lollies along, but he brought the energy into the group.
Well, the Lollies is a good way to start. But Josh Ward at 7, Connor McDonald at 26. They're both hard-nosed midfielders, very much in the same vein as the coach. Tell us a bit more about these boys.
Yeah, we're definitely looking into the midfield area, and Sam Butler can go through that area as well. But I think across the board with the 4 players that we brought in, it was the high-quality character and the standards that they'll set that we feel is important for our club at this point.
And Jai Sarong at pick 53, obviously the brother of Caleb. Fremantle had the pick 54. Is that something you took into consideration?
No, not really. He was just next on our list. Jai, we think he's got plenty of upside and different positionally compared to the other guys as well. So we interviewed him a couple of times and definite interest there, but he was next on our list, so we went with Jai.
Well played. Thanks for your time.
No worries. Cheers.
Thanks to Sarah with Mark McKenzie down at Marvel Stadium. Good first question from Sarah. Who was in charge? Sam Mitchell, the list manager. I like that.
Mark didn't want to say it, but he was. It's, yeah, they've done well again.
All right, a pick is in.
With pick 64, the Geelong Cats have selected Cooper White from the Geelong Falcons.
Another inside midfielder.
Another Geelong Falcon.
Yeah. Well, I like he's both tough and he's got some flair. It's a good combination, isn't it, hey? That you really attack the ball aggressively. He did that for the Falcons this year. I watched him on a number of occasions live. Didn't make Vic Country and all of the rep games and rep squads, but loved the way he played. Been a state-level basketballer. Kids make decisions at around 16, 17 years of age on which sport they'll pursue. He's jumped back to footy. He's just at the 181 centimetre mark, but was right in contention through those performances under Paul Corrigan there for the Geelong Falcons this year.
Right, so the Dogs are out of the draft. Joey, another inside mid for Geelong. You like that? I mean, Charlie Constable goes. Cooper White comes in.
Yep, just need to keep stocking up, taking some more talent and some local homegrown talent.
So this is the dog, Sam Darcy. Arthur Jones, as we heard before, the first Arthur to get drafted since 1984. And Luke Cleary, how do you rate that draft hand, Joey?
Well, I don't know much about the other two boys. That's more Shifter, but obviously Sam Darcy, I mean, you know, how lucky they've been in the last couple of years with the father-son and the academy. He's going to be an absolute beauty. And they got what they wanted.
The talls and the smalls, the 178 in Jones and the 205 in Darcy.
And still
they
growing
can play the game,
apparently as well.
And Cleary at 190, so they've got one of each.
And they don't need much, to be honest, with their list at the moment. They're in a pretty good spot, the Western Bulldogs list, so anything they get is a bonus.
Shifter, we saw Sam Darcy play in defence. We'll hold that thought.
With pick 65, Melbourne have selected father-son nominee Taj Woewodin from East Fremantle.
You're happy, Tommy? Shane Woewodin, you said was your favourite player?
He was my favourite player when I was 9 years old, and to see his son at the club is fantastic. But can he play, Shifter? That's the important thing.
Well, he can find the footy and use the footy. That's a great start. He had some ripper games for East Fremantle at Colts level, then for WA in those rep footy games, and then was a surprise packet at the Testy. Was the second quickest overall in the 20 metres. So he's got that outside run that you want. And he worked hard with Dad too over summer just to be clean with his hands, put in those extra times work, just on the little things, to get your fundamentals right. And he was in tears when Melbourne told him that they would take him in the draft. Should no one bid early enough, they'll tape him at the back end. And that's happened for him. He's becoming a Melbourne player. He's barracked from all his life.
That's awesome, Mick. Can you just give us an insight? Is he even half the player that Shane Woewodin was in 2000? Because if so, I think it's a pretty good story.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he'll be hoping so, and Dad will have put in every effort to make sure he's given him a chance. But he's actually very similar, I find, to watching Shane. He's a goal-kicking mid, very, very smart in traffic. He's got that elusive nature about him where he can see the gaps, and he sees them very, very well and early. I really like him as a player. I think he's also very, very smart when he's outside of the contest as well. He's a good decision maker. And most importantly, he goes and wins his own footy. So he doesn't just purely rely on receiving and getting on the outside. He actually goes and wins it at the source. So really nice balance of inside and outside, and another Woewodin to the Melbourne Footy Club. And I'm sure they'll be hoping he'll put himself in Brownlow contention one day.
Has he improved quite late, Mick? Was he in contention even 12 to 18 months ago?
Well, of course the father-sons are always going to attract attention. So you hear about him and the brothers and the like that you always get in footy circles. But, yeah, he's certainly come on later than what other kids have. But he's bided his time. What I like about it, he hasn't been thrust into the spotlight. They've done a fantastic job in just nurturing this young fella and gradually improving his footy to the extent where he is worthy of being on an AFL list.
Thanks, Mick. Great stuff, as always. Now, St Kilda have passed, meaning all 18 clubs are done for the night, but we'll head to Brad Scott to wrap up the draft.
With all clubs now having passed, the 2021 NAB AFL draft has now concluded. Congratulations to all draftees and good luck at your new clubs.
Thanks to Brad Scott and thanks to all the 18 clubs for their work tonight. Stay with us on Fox Footy. We've got more to come after this. We've got more clubs to talk about and a couple more interviews as well to get to. Looks like the entire Canberra City is in the one town hall, and understandably they're all very, very happy because in the blink of an eye, the dreams have been realised and they are now AFL players. Let's have a look at some of the best feeder clubs in this draft, Shifter and Joey. And, well, unsurprisingly, the Sandy Dragons are at the top, but it's good to see the Dandenong Stingrays as well providing some players for AFL Club Shifter.
Yeah, and a real national look about that as well. We love to be able to say that we have players taken from all states and territories of Australia. It's happened again this year over the two nights. So even the one from Canberra, we've had Sandy Brock taken from the NT. That was before the draft kicked off. And every other state's been represented very healthily there as well.
Let's have a look at North Melbourne, Joey, and how they've gone this draft, starting with Jason Horne-Francis.
Yeah, well, we know they've got the best kid in the country and he's going to make an immediate impact. But then they were able to just build around the periphery, weren't they, Shifter, with Goda and Bergman, some of that outside sort of talent and athleticism and running ability that they needed to add, because they're pretty well off in the moment with that inside midfield brigade, as we spoke about, getting Greenwood and obviously Horne-Francis. So they're continuing to build nicely.
And the father-son, Jackson Archer, as well.
Love that. It's been sensational over 2 days. The two boys at the top end in Darcy, of course, Willis and Dacos, and then boys at the back end. So 5 father-sons joining their dads at those football clubs.
Stay with you here, Shifter. Tell us about some of these Geelong players that have been picked up in the draft this year.
Well, they went local, didn't they, with 3 of the boys. That's fantastic. And then probably I'd call him the absolute diamond in the rough in Flynn Kroger, the boy that only played a few games mid-year. Looked to be a Vic Metro player earlier, the injured, and only got 4 or 5 games in the middle. So a great group, athletic group, plenty of talent there.
All right, the doyen of list management, Stephen Wells. He's with Sarah Ollie at Marvel Stadium.
Well, Stephen, it's been a busy night for you, 5 selections after no selections. Now, you did go for 3 local boys, 3 Falcons. Was that deliberate?
Well, it was deliberate. Obviously, we think the Geelong region is a fantastic footy area, great community. We've got a lot of Falcons on our list already, and those 3 boys that we drafted, though, thoroughly deserved their selections. Toby Conway and Mitch Nevitt with selections in the 20s, had outstanding years for the Falcons and also for the Vic Country team. And Cooper White, when he played, was also an outstanding contributor for the Falcons.
And the 2 other boys, James Willis and Flynn Kroger, they both seem to be in the same build, some hard, tough midfielders. Can you tell us about them?
That's right. Well, Flynn had a bit of an injury-affected year with the Eastern Rangers, but is a strong body, as you say, and a very tough competitor. Met a need for us with our midfield developing group, along with James Willis as well at North Adelaide. A terrific year for him. Big numbers when he played and was able to kick goals out of the midfield as well. So we're very excited to have those 2 boys join those other 3 from the Falcons.
And if you had to give yourself a score out of 10, Stephen, what would it be?
Oh, we just did the best we can. I guess we'll be assessing that down the track. But it was a good to get the draft over and done with and bring some 5 new players into the club. And we're looking forward to the rookie draft tomorrow.
Thank you, so are we.
Thanks very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Ask for a score out of 10. Stephen Wells has never answered that question. Very good. Let's talk about the West Coast Eagles. Joey, starting with Campbell Chesser, who actually came to the London Tavern late last night. I think he was about pick 20, wasn't he? And he turned up and he put on a West Coast jumper that was about 4 sizes too big for him.
Well, he's the only one that's not from WA, and of course he can't head over there until the new year, so he'll be doing some pre-season on his own. But I look there and I see they're replacing the stars that they've had. So Chesser might be that replacement across half-back for a Shannon Hearn, or what happens with Brad Shepherd. They've got some sort of key forwards that can replace their stars they've had in there for so long with Josh Kennedy. They've got a half-back, an intercept marker, that Rhett Bazzo there that might be able to replace Jeremy McGovern, you know, as he gets on a bit. And, of course, Greg Clark, one of the stories of the draft night, the 24-year-old that's been playing waffle and now gets his opportunity at AFL level.
All right, let's head over to Mick Ablett, who is in Perth. 2-part question, Mick. Sorry for this at this time of night. How do you rate West Coast and Fremantle's draft hand, and how do you rate the overall talent of the draft that was taken all around the country?
Yeah, I think both West Australian clubs have had a fantastic couple of days. It's really pleasing to see them invest in their own backyard and particularly, like I mentioned, in the country players. So both clubs should be very, very happy with their draft hand, and especially once the Eagles manage to get Chesser over from Victoria after Christmas. I'm sure he'll slot in just nicely. But full credit to the Waffle clubs and the work that they continue to put in, and not just those guys, but obviously the clubs all around Australia that have managed some really difficult circumstances and still managed to give these young men an opportunity to realise their dreams. So I think it's been a great couple of days for WA football. I think the game's in really good hands. And to those that did miss out, there's been plenty of stories, as we mentioned, Greg Clark and the like, that have been able to come back bigger and better. So to all the kids around the country, all the best for the rookie draft tomorrow. You got the pre-season draft, mid-season draft, and plenty more opportunities down the track. So we wish them all the best. And to those who did realise their dreams, boys, the hard work starts now.
Mick, fantastic work tonight. We really appreciate all you do on Fox Footy. Your insight's amazing. Your analysis is spot on, and we look forward to chatting to you soon.
Thanks, boys. Appreciate it.
That's Mick Ablett over there in WA. He knows a lot about a lot of players, Joey and Shifter, and it's great to have him as part of the coverage. All right, up next, we're going to just look at a very famous moment from a couple of years ago and also speak to Melbourne's list manager, Jason Taylor. But coming up soon on Fox Sports is the BBL. It starts on December 5. It's the Sixers versus the Stars, and you can watch all 61 games live on Fox Cricket. Bathurst on next week. The sport continues on Fox Footy, as does the draft tonight. Let's talk about Melbourne Footy Club. Shifter, what do you make of their 3 selections?
Well, they just need to top up, don't they, Van Ruin? The best swing man, I think. Maybe the best bargain basement was Blake Howes, and then Woden, a little bit of history there with the Brownlow medalist's son. So I think they've done very well, but they're in a great position, and they've just topped up.
All right, we're about to hear from Jason Taylor, but 2 years ago, Joey, Sarah Ollie was caught in a very awkward position. So take a look at this with Jason Taylor in 2019, just a normal interview, went to shake hands.
Controversial. Oh, that's as good a burn as you'll see.
This has been 2 years in the making. Our girl Sarah Ollie has caught up with Jason Taylor again. Let's see how it played out.
Jason, it's not often that the reigning premiers get probably the biggest slider in the draft, but Blake Howes at 39, could you believe he was still on the board?
Oh, we were really thrilled that he was there, to be honest. We quite like Blake, and we like his versatility, his athleticism, and we thought that he was really building into some really good football when the year come to a cut with COVID, and he started to play some good footy on the wing. We know he's played some good footy forward and some good footy back, but you don't want to speak it up too much, but we really were pleased with that result, to be honest.
And Jacob Van Rooyen last night at pick 19. Tell us a bit about him. Is he a bit of a swing man?
Yeah, he is. We like to start Jacob forward. We see him as a key forward for our program, but he has certainly played some significantly good footy as a key defender at national level. So he's got that flexibility, and where it all ends up, we don't know, but he'll start forward with us.
And for the romantics out there, the father-son rule, it's the best in the land. And Taj Woewodin, apparently he was in tears when you told him if he was still available, you'd take him. So it's a dream come true for him.
Absolutely. It was magnificent, going through that process and letting him and the family know. They were quite emotional, but it was well deserved from Taj. He really works hard on his footy. He's a sensational kid, and he improves every day, and we need to keep bringing people in who want to come in and improve every day.
Now, Jason, it's COVID time, so we can't shake hands, but maybe just from a distance this time.
No worries. Well, I did get you in the car park last night. So
you did. Well played.
Right. Thanks, Sarah.
It's good to see they've made up, isn't it? Jason Taylor and Sarah Ollie. It's a shame they can't shake hands, but that is the COVID times we live in. I think Jason Taylor called Sarah Ollie on the way home that night and apologised, so I think they're okay. It's very, very funny stuff. Anyway, look, for a complete wrap of the draft, make sure you head to foxfooty.com.au tonight, and also tomorrow for the rookie draft, where Ben Waterworth, Max Lawton, Ben Cotton and David Zeta are doing some fantastic work. They're wrapping it all up, and they've got all the details and the analysis you need. And on Saturday night is the WBBL. It's the grand final. So what we saw tonight was the Strikers beat the Renegades. So on Saturday night, it's the Strikers versus the Scorchers. You can catch that from 6:30 p.m. on Fox Cricket, and then the BBL starts after that, as we spoke about before. Shifter and Joey, well done tonight. It's been long, but it's been very fruitful, hasn't it?
Yeah, there'll be a lot of beers flowing for all those who got drafted with all their friends and family, so enjoy the night.